Hello, ladies and gentlemen, to a very special edition of the Meta A podcast where we review Final Fantasy VII Remake. I am here with a few good friends, Hell Pockets and Manchester, and we're going to dig in and really understand the overall feeling about how this game has really changed. Oh, I wouldn't say changed, but well, I guess it has changed the how people look at remakes. I don't know. I guess we'll possibly find out. But anyways, thank you guys for joining me. Hope you guys are having a good day today.
Having a good one, yeah. Pockets, how you doing?
It's going all right. It's nice warm weather out. Spend some time walking around. It's cool.
What's interesting is now that we get to talk about Final Fantasy VII, since we kind of put a gag order on Chris to talk about it, or at least amongst us. Chris, we finally got the opportunity, man. It's here. We all played the game.
I've been waiting to bust for the entirety of 4 weeks?
You know what? It has been long, and I really appreciate the effort that you put. However, I definitely muted you on Twitter. As well as shout outs to Crack Prawn, I muted you as well because he definitely would not shut up about the game. But now you guys are all unmuted, and I get to share the experience with all you guys, and so does Gibby.
Yeah.
First off, I want to know exactly what your guys' history with Final Fantasy VII is, because I think that's really important to establish the perspective from which we're reviewing this game. So, Chris, I'm going to let you go first. What is your history with Final Fantasy VII?
So Final Fantasy VII was a game I was super hyped for back when I was 14 years old, starting high school. It's probably the first time I ever really got super excited about a game that I followed it through magazines, through internet postings. Like, that's what really got me into checking forums and whatnot, is all the build up to Final Fantasy VII. Mm-hmm. And when it came out, it was the first game I literally just played all the way through, just didn't talk to people, didn't really interact with anyone other than eating dinner with my family, and then just jump back on Final Fantasy VII. And considering we only had one TV in the house, I was kind of an asshole for that week, So it's something I've had close to my heart for a very long time, and was of course delighted when they decided they being Squaresoft at the time decided to expand the universe.
Yeah.
Into a movie, into more games, into one of the earliest mobile games.
Which one was that
and
one?
Yeah, books, all sorts of stuff. So there's still stuff from that collection that I haven't even consumed yet. So, when they dropped the remake information, I was like, oh my God, I'm not even done yet.
So would you say that you're very well versed in the Final Fantasy VII universe?
I would say I'm fairly well versed in the Final Fantasy VII universe, despite not knowing some of the stuff that was written down in text form, that was just only committed to books. But as far as I've been told, those aren't entirely consequential to the overall plot. So I could be wrong though. But yeah, I would say I'm pretty well versed. I'm an expert.
All right, our resident expert. Cool. Hell Pockets. So we'll be looking forward to your input then. Gibby, what is your history with the Final Fantasy VII series?
Final Fantasy VII series, I got into it when it came out. If I remember right, it came out around my birthday in '97. I bought it with my own money because I was a big boy, and I was just a big fan of RPGs, still am, and I went into it this is gonna be fun. Played through 7, and then eventually Advent Children, watched it, Crisis Core, played it, and I want to say that's the extent. I don't remember if I played any of the others. I read up on the story to some things. Mm-hmm. I know absolutely nothing about Dirge of Cerberus, other than your play as Vincent.
Uh-huh.
I think that's about it.
Would you call yourself a big fan of the series?
Of the 7 series?
Yeah.
No.
Interesting. Your very brief feeling on the original 7. How'd you feel about that?
I enjoyed playing the game. I did not like the story. I enjoyed the gameplay to almost all the Final Fantasies. Okay. But the story is what's hit or miss for me. So in this case, the story didn't do much for me,
Okay. Well, I'm sure with Final Fantasy VII Remake, they've turned you around and made you a full-fledged, dedicated lover of all things Final Fantasy VII. I look forward to
Maybe.
your opinion. All right, and getting into the next section here. Now, I want to hear you guys' overall experience of Final Fantasy VII Remake, the game itself, the most recent release, the game that everybody's been talking about, that has legit changed people's perspectives on how games should be made. Some, not all, but still, it has happened. Before I get to that, actually, I didn't even say what my experience was with Final Fantasy VII series.
Where are you coming from, Brady?
My bad. I have no idea about anything story-wise about Final Fantasy VII. I played the demo way back in the 90s, and I did not like it. I thought it looked like shit. So, you guys already know that I'm an aesthetics whore. So, if something looks busted, I probably didn't give it a chance. However, the art has been something that's endured for me for a very long time. I always really appreciated the designs in Final Fantasy VII, and even watched Advent Children, even though I have no idea what the fuck that was about. I couldn't tell you what it was about, but it looked cool, and it had Sephiroth versus Cloud in the end, and that was pretty cool for the time. But that's it. I don't know a lot of story elements, if anything. Yes, some shit did get spoiled for me years ago about the original, but besides the most major plot points, besides that one spoiler, I don't think I know anything else about Final Fantasy VII.
So, Abe, if you don't mind me asking you,
Yeah.
Something got spoiled for you years ago. How long have you known Hell Pockets for?
Fuck. Let's see. We're in 2020. When the fuck did Arcade 13 come out?
2010, 2011, around there somewhere.
Oh, around there. I guess
So
like
that's
9,
when,
10
that's when he
years.
spoiled Final Fantasy VII for you?
Yeah. Well, I think he assumed that we all knew this shit like most people do. Because apparently everybody played Final Fantasy VII. Which is something I want to get into after I hear your guys' overall experience with Remake. But anyways, for me, I have zero experience with Final Fantasy VII. Don't know much of the story. Can recall a little bit of Advent Children, but that's about it. But yeah, I'm a Final Fantasy VII newbie here on this podcast. So after that, okay, so I want to get into your guys' overall experience with Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I'm going to let Gibby go first on this one. Gibby, let me know how you overall felt about this wonderful game.
Overall, to sum up my overall feelings, I have never played a game that looks and sounds so amazing that I've been disappointed with and let down by. I didn't really enjoy the gameplay elements. I liked that they expanded upon Midgar, so you can explore the entirety of what you played in the original 7, which was cool, but it felt more like a chore. It took forever to get from A to B. You weren't really free to do what you wanted. You were restricted for most of the game. You have one small section where you're allowed to go everywhere, but by that point, I was already burnt out. I was like, let's just go. But overall, yeah, not feeling the game as a whole. Bits and pieces I really like, and other pieces I just don't like at all.
Would you consider it an improvement over Final Fantasy VII?
In some aspects, yes. There are some things that they definitely improved upon. I'm going to upset a lot of people, I guess, because it's not popular opinion, but I think the gameplay is worse. The action RPG element, which I really liked in 15. I did not like in this, and I've been told by various people that they did it better in this game, which they did in some aspects. But the fact that your teammates are worthless unless you make them do stuff is it's just frustrating. Like, why have 3 people on the team? Why have them control with AI in the beginning? Like, just give me back my turn-based combat where I can control everybody and do things. All right.
All right. Well, we'll dig deeper into that part because we definitely got a whole section dedicated to the hits and misses of the gameplay. But overall, would you say mediocre, bad? Where are you feeling on this?
Mediocre. I wouldn't say it's bad because it's not bad. I personally don't like it, but
Yeah.
it is not a bad game. It is a very beautiful game that has lots of flaws.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm gonna let Chris go last. I just want to expand on a lot of the things that Gibby said, because I do mostly agree, but I think it's kind of unfair to really give a score of like mediocre to this. I had a lot of the same problems where I felt really pigeonholed in a lot of the story and the gameplay. Um, I didn't know a lot of the shit that they were talking about. The game I never felt like I wanted to engage in the game to where I wanted to consume every single part of this game. And I've listened and read a lot of reviews, and a lot of people wanted to consume every single part of this game, and it just never got me there. you know but in saying that, I definitely recognize a lot of the things that it did well. Like visually, it's fucking gorgeous. You could nitpick at it. A lot of people pointed out that like textures don't show up on certain areas or whatever, but I just think of it as, the developers allocated a lot of stuff correctly as far as performance wise for the game, and it just overall looks great. Yeah, but wasn't really feeling the story. I never really engaged it. Gameplay, a lot of peaks and valleys. I'd say for me, the whole overall experience was a lot of peaks and valleys. There were really good moments and really bad. More bad than really great. But overall, that's why I find it hard for me to say mediocre, because some parts of Final Fantasy VII are definitely not mediocre. But if I were to give you the overall experience, yeah, it's somewhere between in the middle or slightly better. But I mean, that's where I stand on it. But Chris, you being the fan and into the fandom, and so knowledgeable on everything that's going on here, and may have a completely different perspective, please let us know what your overall experience was with Final Fantasy VII Remake.
So dispensing with like particulars that I found were enjoyable or not enjoyable. Started the game very excited for it, and I was someone who was kind of skeptical about it leading up to the release of the remake. I was someone who was just like, man, I kind of hope that this is just not necessarily a reimagining of a story or the game, but more so just like an upgrade, And I knew I wasn't going to get that, so I was already just like, all right, let's see how much they're going to change. And I mean, I would say for the most part, I was fairly satisfied with the the way they brought Midgard to life. That was a huge sticking point for me. I was someone who absolutely loved the design of Midgard when the game first came out.
Yeah.
And one of the things I never knew about it for years was that there was actually daylight you could see from the top of the plates. So that was something I was like, oh, that's what Midgard looks like in the daytime. Because in the original Final Fantasy VII, it's always dark. They technically reveal that in Advent Children also, but like I felt like that was after 7 Classic ending, that somehow sunlight like flowed into Midgard because Midgard was no longer producing all this, Mako and materia and whatnot. So that was cool, and just in general, the way that they really put a vibrance of life on everything surrounding your characters, I thought that was really cool. Can be kind of overwhelming at times because there's so many NPCs talking, and by talking I mean like they're actually spoken lines. Nothing in this game I think is like not spoken.
Yeah.
Whenever someone's talking, there's a voice actor behind it. That was cool. But much like you guys have agreed, I was not entirely in love with the gameplay. I felt traversing the world was a little linear, and there were times that, and I don't want to nitpick too much, but it didn't make any sense to me, where you were forced to move slowly, and it kind of just really dragged down the pace of the game.
Right.
And it felt like it didn't fit the theme. at times. It didn't feel like it didn't fit the mood of the game. It almost felt like a glitch, honestly.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there's the combat aspect, and I'll get into my my major problems with that later on as someone who plays a lot of action RPGs where you do use two other characters in addition to your main character. But I felt like that just did not work for me, especially towards the end of the game. But overall, I would say the game is okay. I think things are okay. I think Square Enix is on their way to creating a media monster with this specific franchise. I don't think they even need to make other Final Fantasy games for a very long time, honestly. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, especially after the reaction that a lot of the fans have had about this game. Because you guys would agree, right, that the overall reaction for Final Fantasy VII Remake has been overwhelmingly positive, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very surprising to me is because a lot of the reviews, it didn't really pick on a lot of the flaws. I think the main thing that they really picked on was story elements, and everybody seemed to enjoy the battle system, how beautiful the game was, and they just didn't particularly like how it ended. However, we'll get into that one a little later in the podcast, but that's pretty much the only thing these reviewers have been nitpicking. I'm talking mostly like industry people, you know, like the bigger websites and stuff like that, or people who are really popular on YouTube, because I've watched a few videos. Since we're already talking about the battle system a bit, I feel like we should just jump into the gameplay battle system of the portion of this review. And pretty much what you guys said. I had issues with it, and it definitely, in combination with how controlling or how linear the game is itself, it didn't lend to the battle system either. I don't know, guys. I just had a really hard time enjoying it. Again, I had its shining moments. Like, my favorite character to play as was Tifa. She's fun as fuck to play in this game.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Do you
No,
mind?
go ahead.
Okay. She felt very fluid compared to the rest of the cast. Barrett was extremely stiff. He's just sitting back there shooting. Aerith was chucking balls at you.
Lobbing, dude. Chucking would
lobbing, right.
mean some type of force.
Yeah. Blasted balls, man.
Yeah, blasted balls.
Cloud in Punisher mode, it was called, right?
Yeah.
Cloud in that mode felt fine, but only when you're attacking. When you're moving, he's moving. That's the slowest crawl you move in the game.
He does.
Tifa, however, no matter what, she felt fluid. She moved around fluid. She felt great, and she shits out damage.
Yeah.
She was such a good character to use. The moment the battle started, switch Tifa, and she's got a Tetsuzanko that does so much damage to everything. It's like, oh, it's physically resistant. Oh yeah, check out this Tetsu. Poof, 1,000 damage. Yeah. Oh, pressured. Like, oh, nice. Yeah, she was the shining beacon for the battle system to me. Coming in close second is Punisher mode Cloud. And I say Punisher mode because he didn't really feel that great in operator mode. Yeah, there you go. And why name them those? I don't get those. Whatever, that's different. But that didn't feel right to me, or like it felt stiff. And I didn't mind having to shoulder button to tell the cast what to do. The problem is, because the AI is worthless and does absolutely nothing, you will have the character you control will gain like 20 ATB bars. They will still be at half an ATB bar.
Yeah.
They will not gain a single bar, making it impossible to actually stick with one character and make your partners do anything.
Well, Gibby, I just think the reason why that happens is because you're dumb and you don't know how to use the guard fucking ATB thing that they have for you. You obviously should have just left a slot open for them.
You want me to waste a good materia slot?
Yes.
Why?
Because
No, I'm not saying you should do that. I'm actually saying thank you for pointing that out, because that is one of my major gripes of the game. Where I'm totally fine with adding materia that augments character behavior, but not at a basic level like that, where I need to like put it in. I need to waste a material slot so that you use an item on me when I'm fucking dying.
Yeah.
Like, why? Why is that not standard out the box? After it already takes forever for you to build up an ATB bar as an AI partner, what's the point of you wasting that ATB bar or that material slot on you using that AT bar for an item, which highlights so many other problems with that gameplay. But that alone was just like it almost felt like they weren't even aware of how dumb that sounded, you know? And I'm coming from like a background of someone who plays games that you are constantly moving around. You are controlling 3 characters. You're switching between them when you need to, like East. You play East, Memories of Celceta, 7, 8, and soon, hopefully 9. You switch between characters for a variety of reasons. And when you're not playing those other characters, they are very much active usually, unless you tell them not to be, which is another big issue. You can actually give them commands. And I felt like this game could have definitely just benefited from a simple addition to the menu where you control AI behavior. Even if it didn't change the way ATB works, the fact that you're kind of just at the mercy of your AI's whims when you're controlling your main, it just broke the whole thing down for me.
And that's
like
that's very common in those types of RPGs, right? Where you just pretty much give an overall behavior to your character, like lean towards guarding or lean towards healing or something of that sort, right?
Like in East, when you tell your opponents to attack or your teammates to attack, they go all out using skills, whatever, right?
That's usually an option, all out attack.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and if you say defense, and there's just 2, there's offense and defense. You go on defense, they don't do shit. They just let you handle it by yourself.
Yeah.
So I think even that would have been fine. Or you look at games like the Mana series, most recently the Trials of Mana remake, where they have sliders depicting how often you want your teammates to perform these actions, which range from casting spells, being aggressive, using items, using skills. And it's just like, why and it's all based on the amount of MP you have, the amount of HP you have, you know, how many items you have in your box. And I'm just wondering how did this not make it past, you know, R&D, I guess. Well, quality assurance.
The thing that bothered me is that if they're not attacking, they don't build ATB.
Yes.
You know, which the translation to me didn't make it over from the original Final Fantasy VII, where you're always building ATB, right?
Yeah.
So that to me was a problem. Like, if you did build ATB without obviously having to use the materia, then those issues would be less of a problem.
And that's the crux right there. That's the issue. You know, you should be able to, you know, spend all your materia slots on things that are only going to improve your character's either offensive capabilities or defensive capabilities. You know?
You know what was annoying? I don't know how many times this happened to you guys, but how many times did you switch over to Barrett and he never used the what is the triangle move?
Overcharge.
Yeah, he never used it. He's holding on to it the whole fucking time.
he doesn't use it. He doesn't do anything. Yeah. He's just sitting there shooting. Like, they don't. I never see them use ATB unless you make them use ATB.
Well, that's not even ATB. That's just
standard. Oh yeah, that isn't. You're right. Forgot. That's just triangle. And he never charges it either. Nope. He does nothing. He's just walking around observing, like, man, look at these people fight. What the hell's going on here? I don't want to be a part of this.
The funny thing is, I found when you're using him, if you put him as your point character, it's actually the optimal way to play the game, because then your opponent, your teammates are forced to, like, well, you're already hanging back. Somebody's got to do something. You know?
Yeah, that didn't happen for me. I'm sitting there with Barrett just strapped up shooting everything, and Cloud's just like stalking his prey, walking around him, and people just dancing around him like, oh, look at me, look at my fighting position, I'm bouncing, see these titties bouncing, look at this shit. And Barrett's just like, come on, someone help me. Am I the only member of Avalanche that could do shit? And yeah, it does nothing. Like, what I would do with Barrett, I would get his ATB bar full, like completely full, and I would do maximum whatever the hell it was, the thing that used
Fury.
Maximum Fury. I would do that, switch to someone else, and do shit while he's dumping on things. That Maximum Fury thing was probably the best thing for flying enemies. He would just dump on them and kill. Like, he would kill one and then transition to the next, and so on and so forth.
For me, the best way that I used Barrett that seemed to work throughout the whole game, which made me miss him at some point, is you put Barrett on lead, and then you back away as far as fuck as you can. You shoot once, and then switch to your other characters because that forced the enemy to turn around and start trying to attack Barrett.
Yeah, they're gonna aggro him after that.
And then go right back to Barrett once they start attacking the other characters.
And that's why I thought he was one of the best characters to have in the party. They try to band-aid that with Aerith having,
I don't know,
a range attack, but it sucks.
It takes too long to get there, bro. It's like
Yeah.
it's zigzagging in this floating motion, and it doesn't do much damage. A lot of the characters, at least like in boss fights, it doesn't do much.
Yeah.
She built ATB pretty decently on her own, but if you don't select her like Barrett, they won't do shit. But yeah, it's I don't know, man. Like, maybe they should. You know how they would solve the problem about doing all-out attacks or all-out guarding and stuff? This is how they would do it. They would make it a materia.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, that's not good though.
It's not good. That's my point. Is like, why is this not a stock option? I don't get what they were trying to what they were trying to do.
Basically, what you guys are saying right now is they put the materia in for the characters to do shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So you're telling me they added a gambit system from 12?
They should have just fucking put that.
Yeah, but you know how? So when 12 came out and the gambit system was with it, people hated that.
But the thing is that, like, I think maybe because it was too detailed and there was too many like sub menus to those gambits, But other games have had almost exactly the same thing. It just wasn't as complicated. Like, you could
simplify it too. That's not that hard to do.
Simplify it and make it a different subsystem instead of making it materia. Just put it like, hey, what would you like your character to do in this situation, that situation? Make it something simple, not something you have to earn, like in 12.
I'm just surprised that they altogether didn't really address that, because almost every other game that is like this, like, purposely addresses that issue, because the AI is always... What the AI does in 7 is what every other Final Fantasy 7 they even operated even close to have been afraid, and they mitigated by some type of system because they know that that's going to happen if you don't do that shit.
Well, they didn't even try it in Crisis Core. They was like, fuck it, you're just Zack all day. You're never going to have a teammate.
Oh, well,
it's just you. Yeah. And so I was thinking, like, dude, it probably would have made perfect sense if it was just Cloud through Remake the entire time. You wouldn't have to use anybody else.
How does that play? I don't understand, like, how that game... Is it a true RPG? Like, what is the style?
It's more like this. It's more like 7 Remake and Kingdom Hearts, where you're just... You're it's an action RPG. There are some elements of having to wait before you can do certain actions, which is also something that I think was taken in the 7 Remake. And it's actually a pretty similar game at its heart. But the major difference being that you never had to worry about not being prepared for a situation,
Mm-hmm.
You never had to worry about, oh God, I hope I don't go into this fight and then, like, I can only survive if I have 3 people healthy, all performing the same act, all like working in synchronicity. There we go.
Yeah.
It was just you making sure that Zack was outfitted correctly. And I can see why they wouldn't. I mean, I know why they did in Crisis Core, because it's all about Zack, and there's no reason to really include anybody else.
Who the fuck is Zack? Don't answer that question yet.
Yeah.
I was about to say, I'm like, let's not get there yet.
I'm
making a point, but yeah, yeah. Zay, you keep talking about this.
Yeah, so guy. Like there was just there. I feel like where the battle system failed the most was making me really want to play 3 characters. It made me have to play them, because if you want to play this game right, you do have to be switching constantly between these characters, because otherwise they're not going to get anything done.
Yeah.
I guess in a way, if that was their intended design, if that was how they envisioned it, then they did their jobs. But that doesn't mean it executed well. That doesn't mean it's enjoyable for me. I felt like they might as well have just not been on the battlefield at the time, because they wouldn't even draw aggro half the time.
Yeah. So that's why you have to switch characters.
Yes.
So in order to do like almost every fight that was like moderately difficult, or it's harder than a regular fight, I would go to one character and do exactly what Abe said. Pop them with Barrett, and then they'd focus on Barrett for a little bit. And then I'd pop them with Tifa, then they focus on Tifa. Then I switch to Cloud, pop them with, and just rotating over and over.
Mhm.
And that wasn't fun. It's battles aren't fluid to me.
Yes.
And that is a big issue.
Never mind when you switch characters, your fucking camera just goes nuts.
Also,
Yeah, so I was told about the camera settings last night by Hanzo. He told me that you can change them in the settings and it's much more intuitive and it works better, but
as opposed to default,
yeah.
how are we
Like,
supposed to
why?
know that though?
Okay, see, don't ask me these questions.
Well,
That's
that's my issue with this game is that
I didn't go through the menus.
everybody that I have seen explain a lot of the shortcomings in the game, it's like, well, you didn't do this or that, but I was like, that's not something that one, the game tells you to do, and that B is a default setting or anything like that. It's like you obviously already have some information that I don't, right?
Mhm.
So like the whole camera setting thing is like, I don't even know that that's an option. I didn't even know you could do that, you know. And that goes into the otother thing that we're talking about, Gibby, is like how you didn't even know how to switch your limit breaks.
So, just for the record, I obtained every single limit break in the game, but I had no idea how to install them, how to learn them. I was like, oh, I got a book. I go to the item, try to learn it. No,
Should have
wait,
googled it. Should have googled it.
that would have ruined the game for me. Okay. In the original 7, you get a book, you use it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's it. What's more intuitive than that? Oh shit! So the only thing that would make it more intuitive is you get it, it automatically is put into your thing. But this works just as well. And I was like, oh, sick.
Well, why wasn't it in the materia section? That would have made way more sense.
That's the thing that gets me. It's a build like it's not there. I was like, what the shit? I figured it would be there. It turns out, I guess it's in the battle settings or something, which I never went into that option once throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
I had no reason to. I didn't use the L1 commands, like the shortcut commands with L1. I didn't use those.
I tried for a little bit, but it just felt so weird, and I just played a different way.
I feel like unintuitive is the perfect way to describe this battle system, and not only the battle system, but just like the menu system also, because one of the biggest gripes I had is why is the materia system separate from the equipment upgrade system? Like, why are those two different menus?
Oh, and so you bring up the equipment upgrade. This is probably one of the worst upgrade things in an RPG for me. It reminds me kind of Final Fantasy X Sphere Grid, right? Where you get a little board, you have to activate nodes and everything. That's cool. But why do you have a mini cutscene for when it opens up? Why do you have to show me when I crack something? Just make it easy. Like, I get it. The game is flashy. The game is beautiful. Everything about this game visually is fucking amazing, except for, again, the little nitpicky things of lack of textures and stuff like that, which I want to play this game on a PS4 Pro or maybe a PS5. I think that would fix it.
I think this game's gonna look ridiculous on a PS5 because you could tell that they were allocating resources. You know, if they had more, that this game would look even fucking better. But
I really think they should have just held out for PS5.
I want to see it on PC because it'll be in 60 FPS too.
Yeah, PC would be great. Like I thought it was on PC for some reason. I'm an idiot. I was gonna buy it on PC, but yeah, like upgrading your. I hated like, oh, I gotta upgrade this. Okay, let's go in there and to make it worse, let me find what I need to upgrade. Hold on, let me sift through these 8 different goddamn options around this. It's like, why don't you just make it easy? Give me a list. Yeah, see? Give me a list. Fucking hit me with that shit. Let me pick. Oh, I want my attack up 10. Attack up 10. New materia slot doesn't link. I don't want that shit. What magic attack? Fuck you.
Like, you could still keep the visual representation of it, but if a list can just scroll down in between the little solar systems, that makes it that much more easy.
Like, you know, when you're on the center of the solar system, it shows you what everything is. Let me pick from that.
Yes, that was perfect. And it's just there to let you know these things exist in here. Now find them.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I gripe about this is not necessarily just from a gameplay standpoint, because if it's just me sitting in a room at 3 a.m. going through this, I've got nothing but time. But let's say I'm streaming it, and I was streaming. I streamed it from beginning to end. And I'll tell you, one of the deadest air moments is when I was trying to upgrade shit for like 15 minutes. And like trying to decide which one of these works best for this character. And then I remember, they're not going to use it anyway.
Dude, the other thing that's such a massive time sink is that whole section, and then moving around your materia constantly.
Oh god.
Because you're constantly moving around materia, and it takes up so much time, and it takes you out of so much shit. Because now, this is what happened to me at like pretty early in the game, where I started realizing like, oh, I shouldn't have all these material that I'm gonna need later invested in X character. Because I also didn't know that you could switch out materia even if the character's not there. That's not something that it might blatantly tell you, but I don't know. I wasn't engaged enough to see if it did.
It kind of does, but it's weird because they'll still be listed as part of your party as far as equipment goes, and you can interact with that. But at the same time, it's not immediately like unless you try to click on it. It was one of those trial and error type things, you know.
Well,
I don't think there's ever an actual situation where they completely remove a character from you having access to their materia.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess I was going off of like previous experiences, and since I've never played a game where people share things like that, that was a new experience for me. So,
no, what you're saying makes perfect sense. Like you wouldn't normally, your brain wouldn't normally think of that. You normally, when you're in a situation where, oh, this guy's about to leave the party, you fucking divest that guy.
Exactly.
You know, like, whatever. You're not leaving with my shit.
And so there was an evolution for me throughout the game where I did exactly what you just said. Like I took all the resources away from this person because I don't like whatever. I didn't know because I had gotten fucked over before. Because in this game, you switch characters a lot. Like they force teams on you a lot throughout the course of the game. And you could be like, oh man, I'm feeling really confident with Barrett right now. And then Barrett's fucking gone for like 7 hours. Or like Tifa and stuff like that. Things happen like that way too much. So at some point I got like some fucking PTSD about getting fucked over because of that. Because I didn't know that you could switch materia until I figured it out. And I was like, okay, I don't know when the fuck this is going to happen, but I'm jacking all this shit. And on top of that, you could see how it's easier to develop your materia too, like the levels, by like jacking certain ones back and keep working on like your elements or whatever so they could keep progressing. Because let's just say Barrett had fire and his was progressed, but I bought a new one because I didn't know that you couldn't switch, and mine's still at fucking 15 and his is at level 3, you know. just stuff like that isn't so easily apparent. That I'm sure if you had previous experience with Final Fantasy 7, you knew that. You're like, duh, like of course this is what you do. This is a strategy or whatever. But how am I supposed to know the strategy unless it's like you said, trial and error? And trial and error. And here's the thing with this game. This game feels old and new at the same time, because it feels like a lot of video game mistakes that were made back in the day kind of rear its ugly head into modern times, where it's kind of like, well, you just take it for what it is because you should know how to do this. How? I don't know. I mean, other than you probably have played Final Fantasy 7 or played other RPGs, and this is how it works. But then it totally contradicts that, right? Because we just talked about the whole material system and the whole equipping system and all that, and how it's not intuitive. But we're supposed to be intuitive about that other shit. So,
I mean, it's just lucky I played 7 and I knew the material system, and it's pretty faithful to the old game. I'll give it that.
It's better than the old game, in my opinion. In the old game, you couldn't remove materia from people who weren't on your team.
Really?
Yeah. So,
oh my god, then it would have been super fucked.
Yeah. The one of the complaints you both told me is that you don't know, like before a fight, you don't know when to switch your materia and everything. So like the reason, so yeah, that still bothers me, but that's very faithful to the original. But the thing is now it's like, oh, what? I can access all the materia. I can access all the items. I can access everything, because even if my teammate isn't around, and they give me an item that if you equip it on a teammate who's not on your team, you get more defense or something like that.
Yeah,
I forgot what it was called. I always had it equipped on someone, but it's nice. And leveling up your materia in this is just, it's so easy compared to the original. The original took like 20-30 hours to max out a materia.
Yeah,
this I just by sheer coincidence I maxed out like 8 or 9 different materia.
Like you don't even notice it until all of a sudden you have like 2 different kinds of fire.
Yeah, I'm like, why do I have so many materia? I'm like, where did all this come from? And then I did get the walk materia, which turned into the AP plus or whatever the hell it was. I honestly I like the materia system in this game. It's one of the huge improvements from the original. Like, that was one of the worst things about the original to me.
Wow, that's fucking.
I also think they did a better job of explaining it to you in this game than they did in the old game.
Yeah. Explaining like how link materia works.
Yes,
How all that
especially
stuff. It shows you percentages. It shows you what it does if you have it on your. So the original never explained what it does if you have it on your armor or what you have it on your weapon. This tells you if you have it on your weapon, you gain 15% lightning boost. If you have it on your armor, you gain 15% lightning defense.
Yep.
Oh,
you can absorb lightning at one point. I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is sick. And this is one of the things that any kind of remake benefits from, where it's like, okay, so we screwed that up majorly. Let's fix it in this one.
Quality of life shit.
Yeah,
yeah,
that huge kind of quality of life improvement. Yeah, I really love that about this game. That's like one of like that's my favorite change that I could think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I kept feeling with the materia system is that it has so much potential to be a really enjoyable system. But it's just has its issues in conjunction with the way the game is. But yeah, I don't know. As a newbie, I kept wanting it to work like other Final Fantasy games, like how you said with Final Fantasy X or like 12. I kept missing, like, oh, why, I don't understand. Like, why couldn't this be more like 12? But then I think back and I was like, wasn't 12 like a little divisive? I was like, maybe that's why they didn't go in that direction. And it's also not a Nomura game, so maybe.
I also think that Square Enix kind of got caught in a couple of different places coming from a design standpoint. I think they were already like, charged with the duty of somehow recreating the experience of 7 in combat, while also being caught in the new age of game development where things are more fast and button mash friendly.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can really marry those two things very well. And I think that's what this is teaching us, is that if you're trying to blend the combat of a classic RPG with a more updated scheme, it may not be like a bang bang play. Especially with the way that Square Enix likes to design combat. And I'll say this right now, ever since they started doing action combat, it's never been great. Like, I don't think Kingdom Hearts has had great gameplay. I don't think Final Fantasy 15 had great battle system gameplay. It's always been like, okay, they tried, and I can see what they tried to do, but something that they did to the system managed to just make this all go to pieces. And 7, if you forget about your teammates, you forget about the ATB system, just straight up attacking feels kind of weird and clunky.
So do you think that they basically have to give in to one type of battle system, or not battle system, but like how you said, more action oriented, as opposed to really trying to merge the two, just finally, go balls deep in the action side?
Yeah, I would have preferred them to actually, since it's a remake, so feel free to completely redo this battle system any way you want to do it. And maybe this is what they wanted. I don't know. But like, again, I come back to Trials of Mana, which is also a completely new remake of top to bottom.
Yeah.
And and it was already an action RPG. But no one will tell you that the original Seiken Densetsu 3 was the most smoothest feeling gameplay. It had super clunky controls. Sometimes it was kind of hard to tell what you were doing and when you were doing it, versus what it is now on the PS4 and PC, where it's just like, it's super smooth. The battlefields are really contained to a small grid. So even though when you switch characters, the camera swings over to them, you're in such a small confined space that it doesn't matter. You're still seeing everything on the field, That is
actually a good point. The battlefield's fucking massive in
7. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it, in some, like, for the Hell House fight, right?
Oh,
that
God.
makes sense. Massive. So that whole arena, I get. Some of those fights made no sense that they were so big, and then so the problem is sometimes the battlefield's massive, and other times it's way too confined.
Yeah.
You mean the combination of the two worst possible things: a flying character and a confined space? Yes.
I know. So the exact part you're talking about, where it's like you and Cloud and Ares and you both go into trying to get back to Sector 7, and you run into these two flying enemies. They just nonstop. They fly. I was like, they're in the air, I think, for like 20 to 40 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. It's like, all right, let's just block. Oh, we haven't brought up one of the worst things. That fucking roll is worthless as shit.
We're definitely not playing KOF, guys. It's not a real evade.
Rolling is bad at KOF also.
Yeah, I tried to roll away from so many things, and I roll and I still get hit, or the enemy will turn as fast as I'm rolling in the middle of their attack. I was able to avoid some magic here and there, but that's it. I couldn't avoid physical attacks.
You just gotta block it, baby.
But yeah, like flying enemies, those enemies that just spin around forever, and then after they get done spinning, they're dizzy, and then they get back to spinning. I'm like, oh, fuck these things.
So that actually brings me to the last thing I'll say about the battle system. And one of the biggest problems I had with this game was that throughout most of it, it actually takes it easy on you, except for Hell House. Obviously, that was just fucking crazy. But when you get to Sephiroth, and your team just gets fucking melted because you're realizing, oh shit, I've been playing this game wrong the entire time.
Yeah,
I saw so many people get to Sephiroth and just stay. There's this one dude I watched stream that shit, and he had to quit the game because he was like, I can't do it. I've been playing this game wrong the entire time, and Sephiroth is showing me right now. And what I realized was that Sephiroth was actually taking all the things you were supposed to have learned about the battle system throughout the game and applying it to you. And that's when I learned there were certain attacks that you had to avoid and that were very easy to avoid. And then you counter and you put them in stagger pressure. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I wish I knew that for every specific encounter I've ever had in this game, because it's nowhere near that intuitive. And I had to learn that the hard way also. And
the thing that the game does, dude, is that it does have its sections where it's like, hey, this is how you need to play the game. But then right after that, it's like, oh, never mind, just throw all that shit away. You can play however. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah. And a lot of the battles aren't hard. Like, I didn't die until really the last part of the game. But like some of those battles are like, I can't apply anything that you've told me. Like a good example is in the sewers when you're fighting the freaking Kappa and you're in a tunnel and there's like 4 of them. 2 of them are casting frog. The other one's doing the damn Dragoon Lancer.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, I'm dodging all over the place, and he just tracks you. I'm like, what?
Yeah, the jump tracks. I had 3 of them take the sky at the same time. Another issue that I forgot to bring up is stun lock. You get stun locked a lot. Not stunned, not like staggered or anything like that. You get hit, and then you can't move, and then you get hit again. You can't move. You get hit again. That happened to me so many times. I had the character I was controlling die so many times.
Use the block button, bro. What the fuck's wrong with you?
You can't even roll out of like hit stun. Once you get hit, you're just like, boom.
That's it. You can't do anything until you recover. And so I'm holding block. I'm like, why can't I fucking block? I'm mash and roll. Why can't I fucking roll?
This game needs just defense.
It does. So that was I think I want to say it had something like that. It felt like it did. Certain attacks, if you blocked it, like I was able to stagger enemies quicker. I don't know. I tried to just defend anything that hasn't
there were some enemies that said if you block their attacks a certain amount of times, they become more susceptible to stagger, which is bullshit.
Well, like those were usually the humanoid or the human enemies.
Yeah. Which and it comes in handy, especially against the flying human enemies. Holy shit! But like the whole fact that like I'm just supposed to sit here and just take chip damage until that guy's arms get tired.
Yeah,
and then I hit him.
Yeah, that does that does happen a lot. Yeah,
and I'm like, why is that a thing? I should just be able to parry that. Like, come on.
That happens when you fight Rufus too.
Oh my shit!
Where it's like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that in order to officially beat him, right? I could just legitimately just block, and that's it. And just
some attacks.
Wait till he reloads, and that's it.
Yeah.
And to me, there's a lot of fights that I had that I was in disbelief. I was like, nah, man, this fight's got to be more complicated than that. I got to do more shit. I constantly kept feeling like I got to do more shit. It's more complicated than just that, right? And it's like, no, that's pretty much it. That's all you got to do. And then I get bored, and I'm like, oh, okay, well. And I get close to dying because I keep trying to do cool shit.
Yeah, trying to speedrun that shit is like gonna get you killed.
Something else that I forgot to bring up. That was a big complaint of mine. Fighting, and you bring up the Rufus fight, and this is why I thought about it. When you're fighting him and his Panther, if they're grouped up together and you hit so you're supposed to kill the panther first, right?
Right.
But if you hit Rufus, he like parries and shoots you or some shit, right?
Yeah.
So I'm focused on the panther. I hit them both. Rufus parries it. I'm in a battle with a bunch of Shinra soldiers, not soldiers, but like Shinra infantrymen, or whatever the shit they're called. Some of them have shields.
The
I'm
shield
attacking
dudes.
one that doesn't have a shield. Shield fucker. Just, bah! Like, oh shit, I can't attack, and then I get stunned. And I'm like, oh son of a bitch.
Or how about when they jump in front of the target you were trying to hit,
Yes.
and you're like, "Fuck! I didn't mean to hit him." I was like, "Oh well,
Mhm.
okay."
But
Oh, yeah,
not
he
only,
get
not
huge
only
all the
that,
time.
like enemies like the steamer thing, some of the bosses that have multiple parts. Like, hey, I'm gonna focus the main body, but it's actually hitting the arm.
Oh, that's where the
Or-
camera
that's
really,
the
really
worst, man.
shines too.
Yeah.
The targeting system.
And targeting a flying enemy is the worst goddamn thing in the world.
You know what was really a big gripe about this game for me? And it's not
Yeah.
about the battle system. It's more about how Square Enix try to incorporate multiple different schools of thought to approaching gameplay. Let's say they had rhythm games with the dance sequence. Well, thankfully that was only once. They had the bike sequences, which were just like, I don't know, man. Like, did you guys did they even take any cues from existing motorcycle based combat games? Were they trying to remake Road Rash?
I was gonna say I just tried Road Rash.
It's just like
Road Rash?
extreme, bro. That fucking too extreme.
Yeah.
Play that
dude.
shit. It was a throwback.
I mean, and it just felt like these are imperfect versions of other games that they just stuffed in here. And to their credit, the original Final Fantasy VII had a bike scene that wasn't great, but it also wasn't infuriating either.
Yeah. This one, I'll be honest. So the first bike scene, whatever, I breezed through it. Second bike scene, I wanted to get it over with as quick as possible. I wasn't. I was talking to Abe as I was doing it. I didn't realize
Great
I was dying.
time to want to get it over as quick as possible.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was just like, oh god damn it, and I didn't realize that I was like eating a ton of damage, and I couldn't. Some of the flashes that were going on were like fucking with me. I died twice on that part, and I did not die anywhere in the game except there because I was being an idiot. I'm like, just get this over with. Come on, like I did not like that scene at all.
That was a really long sequence.
It was, and you have Bear like, oh well, let me. Well, I'll take care of this thing, and Bear's just sitting there doing jack shit.
Those
And
bullies
then-
don't do shit.
Yeah, like again, it's so in battle the AI does nothing. In story, like they say, I'll do this, and they don't do jack shit.
Yeah, trying to target 6 wheels in the bike scene is just first of all that issue you guys just mentioned came up where like I'm targeting a wheel, but my bike isn't going fast enough to reach it, and the other wheels are already gone. So I'm like, crap, I can totally just end this like part of the sequence right now, but I can't reach the fucking last tire. And then he heals his tires, and I'm like,
So
why?
So yeah,
Maybe I'm just bad at the game. I'm not even gonna say I'm great at the game or anything like that. I don't even know what being great at the game looks like.
no, that you bring up a really good point because in that fight you didn't know. I was like, I kept thinking, am I not pressing the accelerator button? Like, why isn't it going faster? Why isn't it going to the wheel that I wanted to hit? And nothing. It's just that the robot isn't slowing down, or for whatever reason the game decided for you to not allow you to go faster.
Yeah.
And that things like that happen a lot in this fucking motorcycle game because even with the Shinra dudes, the same thing would happen. They'd be way ahead, and I'd be like, how come I can't catch up? It's only when the game decides to let me catch up. So is this shit arbitrary? It just felt like a lot of the stuff was just there, but really the game is controlling everything, which is what really made that whole thing suck, because you ended up doing the same fucking thing. Building up ATB took forever, and that's the only real damage that you get.
Yep,
is
the
off
spin
of
slice or the projectile.
Yeah, and then it's almost stupid to use the projectile version because it's like, well, you only hit one person. I mean, you could hit 2, but you'd have to line it up, but you only hit one person, you might as well use the spinny shit and wait for them to come back.
I mean, straight up, they should have just did Panzer Dragon and let you target multiple enemies and do like some fucking round time boomerang slice or some shit.
Yeah, it wasn't good. And it was too long. However, it did look cool. All the stuff that was happening. The robot looked cool, even when you're fighting the Roach dude in the beginning.
Shout out to Roach, best new character.
Yeah, and then he's fucking gone.
I wanted to save that till later. I'm gonna get into that later.
Yes, we're almost there. We're almost there. But yes, these fucking things like the motorcycle fights and even the whole last section that you're playing, it just takes you so far away from the experience of the gravity of what's happening, because it feels so out of place. Like, the other thing is, it's like, okay, Cloud is supposed to be the super fucking soldier, and he does all this crazy shit where he's jumping from ledge to ledge, practically turned into fucking Goku and teleports. But some things are like difficult for him. Like, he can't jump off of this thing that's kind of close and then hit him, or I don't know, bro. It's just he seems so overpowered, and then suddenly he's really weak. Like, he could barely hold on to a person and bring him up or whatever. So I don't know. It's just things like that where you have to have a suspension of belief, and the game takes its liberties a little too much on stuff like that.
Yeah, there's the super Cloud where he's cutting through buildings, bouncing off walls. I'm like, what? Where was this earlier in the game? How come you had to walk up those goddamn? Why did you climb that ladder instead of flying up that ladder?
You're telling me, bro? Okay? So, are you guys good with being done with the gameplay part?
Yeah, I got nothing left.
Yeah. Okay.
Except for darts. Darts are the best.
Okay. Oh yes.
All the mini games.
The fucking problem with this game is the cool shit they give you, they immediately take it away from you. I was like, oh, darts is cool. Hopefully they have like a higher set score at another bar. Obviously, I've never played this game, I don't know the story, but I'm thinking there's gonna be another bar somewhere where I can play darts, right? And then the score will be higher. I'll be like, oh, fucking, I'll fuck that shit up too, because I scored a perfect score on the first try. And I was like, damn, I must be really fucking good. Let me keep playing this game. Last time I gotta play. That's it. They got a pinball machine there. In 15 had all that shit. It had a bunch of those little side games you could play all the time. And I was like, oh, cool, let me try a pinball. Yeah, they probably got some shit. 15 had it. Nope, it's just there, which is cool, but...
Secret passageway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. But, yeah, agreed. Pretty much explained as much as I could say about the battle system and gameplay stuff for that. Which, anything else I think that we're going to talk about that would explain that is directly connected to the story, Yeah. But yeah, guys, so I'm gonna let Gibby elaborate on the story, and then I'll go after, and then actually we don't even have to do it that way. I just because this shit is like all over the place. So for me, okay, I'll just start off for me. The first 6 to 7 hours were great. I thought the pacing was awesome. The way they introduced the characters, it gives you a lot of hope as to what's going to happen in the future, and you're genuinely curious about a lot of shit, and it just feels fun. The game feels its most fun to me in the first like 1 to 5 to 6 hours, something like that. I could specifically break it down to whenever you start hanging out with Aerith, where the shit takes the left turn. But the whole operation that they're doing in the beginning where he jumps off of the train, great fucking start. That whole fucking mission was great. How they introduce you to all the stuff, fantastic. But man, do I never really get that feeling ever again of like, oh man, I'm about to get this mission over with, or I'm excited to like fight this boss. I never really get that again, and if I do, it's nowhere near as good as it was in that first section. Yeah, I don't know, man. The story, I was not engaged with the story. It didn't engage me as a new person to the series. I knew very little, and it sets up a lot of stuff in the beginning, but then doesn't ever really capitalize on stuff. The whole beginning part where they start to really build that love triangle kind of feels weird, because Cloud, once you finish the game, Cloud still hasn't really like chosen, yeah, I'm really into this chick, or anybody really. for that matter,
What was it that I said when we started all this?
I
Cloud
forgot.
the bitch. That's what it is.
Cloud. Okay, so let's talk about Cloud, right?
Mhm.
We could focus our energy on that character because he is the main character.
Yeah.
Pretty weak main character in my opinion. Probably could have been a silent protagonist. And I know that would be blasphemy for this game because Cloud is obviously one of the most popular characters of all time. But he doesn't add much to the fucking story if you really think about it. What do you think, Gibby?
I agree to an extent. For this game in particular, yeah, he doesn't really add much outside of like he is a vessel for the Sephiroth stuff to happen.
Yeah.
That's really all he is in this game, storyline wise. That and everyone wants to fuck him, and I mean he's too much of a bitch to actually give the dick to anyone. Yeah, 100%. He could have been a silent protagonist in this particular game. In the original, no.
Mhm.
And later on, once they expand upon this, I will not have that same opinion. But for this particular game, yeah, he didn't have to say shit. Could have just walked around like, and then everyone's like, "What'd you see, Cloud?" And then you can answer, "Oh, nothing. Did I just see Sephiroth somewhere? Ooh, I saw some titties." It's, typical silent protagonist shit.
He doesn't really react to stuff much.
No, he doesn't. He's emotionless. He's monotone throughout most of the game, and I get that's kind of like he's dark mood, like he's dark and broody and like emo and all that kind of shit. But give him more emotion. You figure he would have some more emotion for certain things, and you see there are certain points in the story where it's like he struggles with emotion, or he's like, "Oh man, that's fucked up." Well, I guess that's how it goes. Like, that's it. Like, and it's not a knock against the voice actor. The voice actor did a good job. It's just
that's the character.
That's the character, and it's like ugh.
I also like.
I was gonna argue there's a reason for that.
There's something that you mentioned to me one time, Chris, when we were playing, and you asked, I think Gibby, like, "Hey, how did you feel about Sephiroth coming out so early in the game?" So me as not knowing anything about the Sephiroth character. Because I mean, we're still talking about the Cloud connection. I never really understand what the fuck their relationship is, other than he used to be a badass soldier, but then at some point it just fucking he turns into basically a god, and there's no real explanation. They introduce him. I understand why they would do that. He's a very popular character. Looks really cool, all that stuff, but he never elaborates on Sephiroth. Like, I think ever. If anything, the only exposition you get is through other people, and like maybe Aerith says one thing or another.
So the issue here is one of the main problems I have with the story, the way they retold it. Originally in Final Fantasy VII Classic, you don't even see Sephiroth at all in Midgard. You see his handiwork in the Shinra building when he kills President Shinra, but he's not actually there at the time, or at the very least, you don't see him. You just see like trail of blood. And it's during that time that they build up to his appearance, and when you finally do get to see him in present day, you are treated to all these could be real, could be fake flashbacks of what happened that led up to the point where he became who he is at the time. In Remake, they assume you've already played the game and remember all that, so they're just gonna shove him in your face. And as a fan, I'm like, oh shit, he's here already. This was different. This is really intense, and like everything's changing right now. I actually had a moment on stream where I was like, is this real? Like did he literally just appear and set everything on fire? And then he appears again a second later and has Cloud follow him through like this fake like on fire city or some shit like that. And I just remember thinking like, wow, this is great for me. I'm having a good time right now, trying to figure out what's going on here.
But I'm on the same page as you, by the way. At this point, I am definitely excited about this. But
we're excited for two different reasons. You're excited because it looks really cool and you want to know what's going on. I'm excited because this is not how I remember this sequence playing out at all. So I want to see where this goes. We both want to see where it goes. But I also remember thinking, like, you know what? If someone has no idea that Sephiroth or what makes him so important to the story, they're probably gonna think like, well, hopefully we get to see more of this guy before the end of the game. You know, hopefully that's the dude we got to go up against at the end of the game or some shit. And to a certain extent, they managed to do that. But even at that point, for varying reasons, you still don't really understand why Sephiroth is so important to Cloud, what's his connection with him, and why he's fucking with his head so damn major. And I thought that was just like, how can you ask someone to really be invested in that? Then again, this is an episodic series, so maybe that was their bait, you know?
The frustrating thing about that is you don't know. So if you don't know Final Fantasy VII, like any Final Fantasy VII stuff, you don't know what's happening. And also a lot of people at the end, from what I was reading, had no idea that it was Sephiroth fucking with Cloud. They thought it was just Cloud having hallucinations, having PTSD.
I thought that's what it was too. I
original
just said that.
He was having flashbacks.
And then when you get to a certain point in the game, you understand that like Aerith knows what's going on. Like she's completely aware of everything, which is one of the reasons why I haven't said this yet. I don't like the character.
I had issues with that too.
She's blatantly hiding things.
Yes.
She knows what's going on. She knows the Sephiroth. She gets all the shit happening, and it's like a power struggle with the two of them trying to manipulate shit, right? But you don't know this at all until you get to it. Like you kind of figure it out at the end. Even if you're a new character or a new player, you can piece it together at the end. It never blatantly tells you what's happening, but you can piece it together. But for fans of the original, like seeing Sephiroth that early was a big fucking boner for them, right? And on top of that, like Chris said, you do not see or interact with Sephiroth at all in Midgar. You mean to tell me they're gonna make this fucking remake, make it only Midgar, and not show you anything Sephiroth?
Oh, you know that's not gonna happen.
That was definitely a possibility that we were looking at, though. We were like, okay, we're probably not going to see Sephiroth for the first episode unless we go beyond Midgard and we make it to Nibelheim or something like that, or they do the flashback where Cloud and Sephiroth are entering Nibelheim.
Yeah, so I assumed that they would show Sephiroth through flashbacks. That before knowing anything about the game, I'm like, okay, they're going to show him flashbacks. I imagine most of us figured the game would only be Midgar. I was hoping that it would go to like Cosmo Canyon. I wanted it to go pretty deep into it. To go to the town after Midgar, where they explain a lot of the backstory for Cloud. Yeah. That's where I would have liked for it to go. I was hoping to see the Zalem, right? That's what it's called, Midgard Zalem, I think.
Yeah.
I was hoping to see that because, Abe, you haven't seen this yet. There's a scene in the original. I'll show it to you later. That when you see it, it's like, oh man, this is sick. The music, the setting, the everything about it's like, oh, this is cool. And it's like, oh, the Sephiroth did this. Like, what the fuck? Sephiroth did that? And you still haven't seen the character yet.
Yeah.
Outside of the instruction manual, you haven't seen the character yet. And you're like, what the fuck is this Sephiroth guy? What the hell you do? Holy shit.
So do you think that they build the myth of Sephiroth way better in the OG one?
100% better.
Yeah, in the original, they built it much better. In this, they make him out. He's a fucking god. Like,
there's no payoff for this guy. Is my problem.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's no payoff, and then to make it worse, it just Cloud went from being, hey, I'm a soldier, to like I'm fucking Super Saiyan God Blue Goku with Mako in my blood.
Yeah,
and he only got to that point once he realized he was dealing directly with Sephiroth.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that part of what ruined the ending for me, and we won't have to get into it right away, but a part of what ruined the ending for me was that once I saw them directly interacting like that, I was like, all right, it's over. Like, there's no way that they're going to be able to end this episode the same way they ended getting out of Midgard the first time, because Cloud has seen way too much. They're talking way too damn much, and they're talking about shit that's like, at first it seems inconsequential to Final Fantasy VII storyline if you're believing that this is following the same track as Final Fantasy VII Classic. But if you for a moment would think that, oh, maybe they're actually going to change everything, which I should have, I didn't. I just hated it. Then it made perfect sense. But who it doesn't make perfect sense for, again, are the new players, because it demands that you understand that Sephiroth did all these things in the previous version of the game, and demands that you beat that game and see how that ended, and then be like, wow, this is a totally new spin on everything. This changes everything. You know, you don't get the significance of that as a new player to the 7 series just going through 7 Remake. I feel if anything, you get confused, because you're just like, is this like Ada was asking me the entire time, is this how it happened? And I was like, no, that there's nothing like that occurring.
There's no foundation for a lot of the shit that happens in the game for me, because I have nothing to base it on, right?
Right.
So all I'm getting is this whispers shit, which immediately when the whispers get introduced, I'm annoyed. Like, I find that shit to be like the most annoying fucking thing in the whole game, because it just stops all the action. The whispers constantly stopping the action. And I guess in hindsight, when you really consider what the game is and you have all the knowledge and everything, then it becomes maybe the opposite, where it's like, oh, that's interesting. Why did the whispers show up there to stop that? But as if you just look at the way it interrupts the story from progressing, for me, it was really annoying. Like, can we just get over what's happening right now and not have these fucking whispers show up all the goddamn time? Like,
right.
Can we just handle this story element? But then the whispers showed up, and it like bugs the shit out of Cloud. He can't jump over this fucking fence or something. Or I don't know, bro. It's just a lot of things that I guess, yeah, in hindsight, after you have all the info and you put the theory together, that's like, oh, okay, they're arbiters of fate or whatever the fuck, where they don't want you to change the course of fate, because they do talk about that a lot. And it doesn't really make sense up until like the very, very end. And you see the final cinematics and everything. You put it all together, right? That the game forces you to do a lot of the heavy lifting as far as the narrative goes. And I can't excuse that, you know? Like, you mean to tell me that I have to go on my own journey outside of the game, outside of what the game itself offers, in order for me to really appreciate the gravity of the things that are happening right now? Because as it is, things just aren't making sense to me. It's just jumping from different things. As far as I could tell, the whispers just annoy me. And then Aerith, the thing Gibby was talking about is that, so Aerith is one of those characters in like an anime or like a story, cartoon, whatever, where she plays like almost a complete dumbass in the beginning, right? Later, you get the idea that, oh, she must have been playing coy the whole time. Yeah. And she does know what's up, but she's playing that role, right? She's being a little manipulative, even, you could stretch that. But to me, she was just annoying the whole fucking time. You know, cause it's like, especially if you know her significance from OG7, you forgive a lot of that bullshit. Because you know where the story's headed. Like, I see what you're doing there with Aerith, bro. I'm just thinking she's just an idiot. Yeah. You know, I have no backstory to Aerith, but you get introduced to her and you're like, oh my God, this girl's insufferable. Like, I have to deal with her. And then every time she kept about to like leave or the game was forcing you to part ways with Aerith, she fucking shoehorns herself into the situation, and I get immediately bummed out again. And I'm like, oh man, like I'm gonna have to go through this whole section with Aerith too. And you're with Aerith for a long ass fucking time.
And I think that's like the center of what I'm not liking about the retelling is that, and the producers and the directors have come out and said they want Aerith to be the most important character in the game. And I'm like, she's not. It's Cloud. The story is literally about him and how he overcomes, or at least how he overcame all the shit that everybody was doing to him. And when I say everybody, like everybody fucked with him in the last game.
Yeah. Well,
like friends and enemies.
Well, when you think about it and you see the whole game, you played the whole game, you kind of understand why they were saying that Aerith is going to be the most important part. She obviously has either. Here's another thing. We just said that Cloud turns into Super Saiyan. All of a sudden, Aerith has like some weird fucking ability to open and close portals. And you're like, what the fuck?
she's like, I can do it when I feel like it, you know, like it just, and again, that is all exclusive to 7 Remake.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when things just started, things just go off the rails there, you know. Like they purposefully raise the stakes and move them away from where they were originally intended to be for her and for Sephiroth. And all of a sudden Cloud becomes like just a player in her story. And it's not because I don't like Aerith, I just don't like that aspect of it, I guess. I don't think it's a bad story, but I also think that they torpedo at least 10 years of work by doing that. Are we cool to talk about the ending now? Like, are we all?
I'm fine with it, Gibby. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Gibby?
Story wise.
Oh, I'll mention a few more things before we get to the ending.
All right, 'cause I'm getting kind of mad.
which gets into the whole thing with Sephiroth as well, is that they introduce a lot of characters, and you know they're supposed to be important, but they barely fucking come out.
Oh man,
you know, like there's what's the boss of the Turks?
Sung.
Yeah,
Sung.
That character seems significant, but we never get to directly deal with that character. Rufus comes out of fucking nowhere, and it's like, what? Suddenly he's the president of Shinra. A whole lot of shit happens in that scenario involving him. That's like, okay, now this is it, and you're gonna have a fucking boss fight with this dude? I was like, at the end, where they keep blue balling you on that you're gonna fight Sephiroth, right? I was like, oh, here it goes. You're about to have a rooftop fight with Sephiroth. Oh, here we go. No, motherfucker, Rufus just turned into a fucking president, and you're gonna fight him, and he's gonna shoot lasers through coins. It's like, oh, fucking. I mean, it was cool, but I was just like, well, who's this? You know, and to do stuff like that so late in the game, I'm like, I have not been able to build much relationships with a lot of these characters that already seem so important, obviously, because he's fucking president of Shinra now, you know? And it's like, how does he fit into this story? And then before you really get to dig any semblance of deepness with that character, you're like on a completely different trajectory with what's going on with Sephiroth.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I don't know.
So you bring that up, and I want to say, so the way Rufus was brought into this is pretty much how he was brought into the original. Same thing. Right.
Big difference though. It's not. This isn't the whole game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But what I'm trying to get at right now is I've seen a lot of the fans praise a lot of the changes made to the story. Like, oh, this is great. But then when something is like the original, but it's still stupid, like it's like, oh, that's okay. This is the way they did in the original. That's fine.
Oh, I don't think the faithfulness.
It's not an excuse. That's what I'm saying. It's
dumb. Not a good excuse.
But I've seen a lot of that. After I beat the game, I did what Abe did. I started like looking at what people were saying, what they thought, and I wasn't looking at conspiracy theories because I didn't care to get into that. I just wanted to read other like fans, like hardcore fans' thoughts, and they were very forgiving about anything. It's like, oh well, if someone said I didn't like this change, bro, you wanted to be just like the original? That's stupid. And then when someone's like, oh, you know, I don't like how they didn't fix this. Like Rufus just comes out of fucking nowhere. There's no hint that Rufus exists. Outside of like, I think Reno or Rude mentioned boss once,
which doesn't mean anything.
Also, I don't know what the fuck a Turk is. They talk about Turks like everybody knows what the fuck a Turk is.
Yeah.
So I will also get into that after we're done here.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff like that. Like, I don't mind the changes. I don't mind things being the way they were in the original. I just would like more. I would like more build up to it. I would like to have known a bit more, like hint that President Shinra has a son, hint that, oh yeah, you know, there's a room in the Shinra building dedicated to President Shinra. I looked at everything. I don't recall seeing Rufus in any of those things.
That's his son?
Yeah. That's Rufus.
Did they say that in the
Shinra.
game?
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah.
Oh fuck, I totally missed it then.
Also,
I mean, I wouldn't blame you for skipping those.
Yeah, Rufus looks like a baby David Bowie to me. I don't like how I didn't like how they did that in the original.
Hmm.
Like, but that's a typical RPG thing. Like someone dies or someone vanishes, all of a sudden, oh, replaced by this new villain, this new relative, stuff like that's a typical RPG trope. I don't like it.
Yeah.
You come to like say the Dragon Quest games, I fucking love them, but that's a trope in every Dragon Quest game. It's a thing they do, and it's what Dragon Quest is known for now. But not every Final Fantasy does that.
Hmm.
Most Final Fantasies don't do it. If they do it very early on in the game.
Yeah.
And in the original 7, people argue like, so in the original 7, who's the main villain? Some people will say it's Rufus and Shinra. Some people say it's Sephiroth. And then when you expand upon things, people say, well, Sephiroth's not even the actual villain of the series. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Yeah.
It's weird because it's Genova. I don't know why.
That's the thing. Like, but it's all Sephiroth trying to do his mother's work. Like, oh, mom did this, I'm gonna go do it too.
It's the people who were inserted with the Genova cells are unequivocally the main villains of the Final Fantasy VII series. At least they were.
Now it's
time to talk about everything they torpedoed. Sorry, I'm not taking over the show, Abe.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say that there was so Final Fantasy VII as a series has been built over several different forms of media, movies, games, books, whatever, right?
Uh-huh.
And throughout the entirety of it all, almost everything centered around the Genova cells as far as villains go.
And what is that, by the way?
The Genova cells are the samples that were taken from the remnants of the Genova alien that fell down to Earth and were in various ways implanted into people and babies.
The fuck?
Basically, people were just augmented with Genova cells. The first one we know about is, of course, Sephiroth. And later on in the game, well, actually, no, I'm not going to spoil that part for you because that's actually part of 7 proper. But later on in the series' lifespan, we learned that there are other soldiers who were implanted with Genova cells. Several who appear in Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core appear in Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus. And that's how the series supposedly ends, but doesn't actually end there because one of the main villains from both of those games, Genesis, appears at the secret ending of Dirge of Cerberus, very much declaring his intent to continue to fuck with the planet. So technically, Final Fantasy VII originally it hasn't ended yet, even before the remake. The remake comes around, and we get to the ending where Sephiroth and Aerith basically rewrite everything that takes place after the highway and until the ending scene at the cliff is completely exclusive in concept to Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Okay, I'm gonna do you a favor, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do you a favor. Okay. Right now, from this point on, you could spoil whatever you want, even if it's original 7.
Okay, cool.
There's no problem. You guys watching, if you guys don't want to know anything about OG7, which I feel like anybody that would listen to this podcast probably already knows everything. Still, warning, I'm gonna let Chris explain the whole fucking thing. Nothing's off limits. Because I already know a lot of the story and the ending, or like the ending proper, not just, spoilers like Aerith dying. No, I mean like the ending. I already know about it. I know how it ends. So to let you like paint the perfect picture that you're trying to paint, because I don't want you to leave stuff out. But go ahead, you could fucking spoil away. It doesn't matter if it helps you explain the story.
Okay. Well, I'll continue where I left off. So we get to the point where, Sephiroth you're fighting Sephiroth, you quote unquote beat him.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's already clear that this is no longer about everything that just occurred beforehand. You are now in an alternate dimension fighting superpowered whispers.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And Sephiroth is talking about changing the course of existence, basically. None of this exists in Final Fantasy VII, and none of them None of in the original compilation, in the original game, none of this exists. This is entirely new. And I just want to say right now, it almost completely torpedoed my interest in everything.
So that part for me torpedoed my interest in Sephiroth because he ascends so quickly behind the shadows that it's like, oh, he's a god now. Like, the shit he's doing is godlike. He's fucking changing the course of history and interdimensional. I'm like, I don't know if I could get into this character who has just ascended to god form so quickly in this story, especially when I barely know anything about him.
No, I agree with you on that end. When I say torpedoed my interest, it's not that I'm not interested anymore. It's more or less just like everything that I was hoping that this game would be is potentially off the table now. Final Fantasy VII, the first episode does a terrible job of really introducing you to everything they built. And I get that they can do that over other episodes, but the timing and the placing of these things are not lending themselves very well to a cohesive storyline, I feel. A good example is they didn't mention Zack by name the entire time. They hinted at him, obviously, if you were in the know, but they didn't mention him until the very end, where they literally show the ending of Crisis Core.
Sorry to cut you off. They never mention him. His name is never said.
His name is never said, but they hint at Cloud having a war buddy.
Yeah, you know where it's said. So I play everything with captions on. It says his name in the captions as him speaking.
Oh, okay.
That's the only time his name is ever said anywhere.
It's the only time his name is said. So it's like you don't even know his name is Zack unless you're looking at the subtitle.
So
and credits.
If we look at that scenario where they show Zack, you know what it made me feel like? Somebody that didn't know who the fuck this character was. It made me feel like, is this alternate dimension Cloud?
I mean, it's that confusing. It's that confusing.
Because they introduce the whole alternate dimension shit in that whole ending, or not ending, but the ending, the whole last like 2 to 3 hours of the game. They introduce that whole like, not everything is as it seems, or it could be, or it could not be, and blah blah blah. We can change destiny, but we can't at the same time, and all this other stuff. And
you're just like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
Yeah, it just gets way too fucking metaphorical, meta, whatever the fuck you want to say. And my personal preference, I hate it when games go in that direction, where it's like everything's just a celestial battle of fucking whatever gods, and everybody's reached god form at the end of the game, which happens in a lot of games.
You know what's weird though? That's not even the issue here. That's the weirdest part about all that. That definitely sucks, like in terms of how they're telling the story. But the things that they are now technically just dropping the weight of is humongous. You mentioned not knowing who the Turks are. This game would have been a perfect opportunity to bring in elements of Before Crisis, a game that is literally all about the origins of the Turks.
Oh wow, okay.
It's just about them and how they ended up beefing with Avalanche, how Avalanche gets formed, is surrounding their story.
Dude, wow.
The Turks actually have a very rich history.
Wow.
And you don't get to hear any of it outside of Before Crisis.
So something you bring up about Avalanche. So in this game, we learned there are multiple branches of Avalanche. So we've been told throughout the series of Final Fantasy VII that Barrett is the leader of Avalanche. He wasn't originally the leader of it. Once it got expanded upon, but apparently he just in the original we were told that he discovered Avalanche, he created all this kind of shit, right? In this, is he still the leader of Avalanche? Because it doesn't seem like he is.
I mean, it's just him and the guys in Midgar. He's got a small team in Midgar. Meanwhile, Avalanche apparently is this gigantic fighting force.
Yeah,
which is something that is from Before Crisis.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's in the older games. Yeah, it's in the older games. They don't necessarily explain it, and in this game, it doesn't feel like it feels like Bear's just a small cog in the thing. Like, what's HQ doing here? You mean you're not HQ, motherfucker?
Exactly right. Now, if you're playing
dude,
the original Final Fantasy VII, you're thinking it's just Barrett, Tifa, and Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse, and 3 of them are dead, so Avalanche is over. Turns out Avalanche was probably very much alive the entire time.
you know that wall that you have to get over that says Avalanche?
Yeah.
That at that point of the game, that's what made me start thinking about, like, wait a minute, well, how come Barrett and none of these guys react to the fact that it says Avalanche on the wall? They just like whatever, just overlooked. It says Avalanche and that's it.
Yeah,
like, that was really weird to me.
I don't know. There's stuff like that happens all over in the game, and I mean, one of the things I will applaud them on that is taken somewhat from Before Crisis and just the overall Final Fantasy VII universe is they actually talk about the Wutai War, which was something that was almost never mentioned in the original or in any of the other games, really. And when you eventually end up interacting with Yuffie and you go to the village of Wutai or the city of Wutai, whatever you want to call it, it's more laid out there. But in 7 Remake, they kind of set this backstory for it, which makes me think in later episodes of the game, it will become a big deal. And that's fine. But I also just feel like this is not how I want to consume this content, you know? Like, if you want to make Wutai something I'm gonna keep in my head as a new player, if you're gonna, like, you know, put this in my brain for later usage, like, give me a side quest that's all about it, you know, or not even a side quest. Give me a main quest that is just about dealing with guys from Wutai, even if it's just one episode, you know, even if it's just like one chapter. And that doesn't really happen. So you're just kind of like, well, I remember these NPCs keep talking about Wutai War. So maybe I'll remember it that way. I just felt like that was, like, you know, not the best way of doing that, basically. But at the same time, at least they included it in there. But again, at the end of the game, like, does anybody really care about that now? Like, whatever just happened.
The stakes just went through the fucking
roof, man.
Yeah.
Like, because, and I've told several people this, that it felt like we went from playing a game called Final Fantasy VII to playing a game about playing Final Fantasy VII. Like, I feel like there's 2 games going on here. There's one where we're gonna go through all the important plot lines that the original Final Fantasy VII set forth, and that the producers have supposedly confirmed this. And then there's also the side of it where it's like, we're gonna be playing through this meta game where things are going to be constantly changing and we're going to be aware of it. And the first thing to go was the ending of Crisis Core being rewritten. And Crisis Core's ending was already a rewriting of the way Zack died in the original Final Fantasy VII. Because in Final Fantasy VII originally, Cloud and Zack make it to Midgar and they get shot in the back by some Shinra guards. And in Crisis Core, he gets gunned down by an army of Shinra guards.
Well, in the original 7, it's left kind of open-ended because Cloud survived.
Yeah. They left him, he just left him there.
Yeah. So the ending, from what I remember, I should go back and rewatch the ending of Crisis Core because I played through it. I liked it. It was fun. The ending to Crisis Core was emotional. Like, it shows Zack dying.
Yeah.
And him like, hey, Cloud, here's my legacy. This is our legacy. Let's do this together, and gives him the Buster Sword.
Yeah. And that's when Cloud starts thinking he's Zack.
Yeah, because for what is it? They escaped Hojo's lab or some shit.
The Nibelheim, the Shinra mansion in Nibelheim, they put him in they were doing the experiments on him.
Yeah, the hyperbolic time chamber. They were there for like 2 to 10 years, some shit like that. They were there for like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And Cloud was kind of like in shock still. He was he couldn't, it was a baby, basically. He couldn't do anything. Mm-hmm. And Zack had to like take him out, like carry him around. And I think Cloud like literally crawls from behind a rock to meet up with Zack, a dying Zack, and then takes a sword. And the ending to this, it's like, oh no, well, you know, now Cloud is just still knocked out cold.
Yeah. And
like, okay.
and I think, like, what Sephiroth said before about how things were already happening. It was nothing that Cloud could do about it. Meant that was already going to change, and it did. And they've split the timelines. Now there's a universe where Zack lives and a universe that he doesn't. And the question going forth now isn't how is Square Enix going to handle the further retelling of Final Fantasy VII. It's going to be how the hell do they handle that sequence? Like, are they just going to leave us hanging?
You know what I think is so theory bullshit. I'm not getting too deep into anything. I just think this is a good opportunity. Like, they showed that the future, you can change the past by changing the future, right?
Yes.
Essentially what they showed. So what if the two timelines are going to be interacting with each other in some way?
That's the most popular theory.
Yeah, that's really what it seems like will happen. I don't care what they go. So I don't care what they do going forward. I'm gonna play it most likely, or at least watch a stream of someone playing the entirety of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But I am curious to see how they're gonna do it. I just don't care which direction it goes, because I'm not a diehard fan of 7, so it doesn't. I'm not mad. I'm not happy. It's just like, all right, this was kind of cool, kind of dumb. And oddly enough, the reason I think it was dumb is because of how it happened. How the whole, like, Cloud becoming Super Saiyan or whatever the shit, like Superman. Like, didn't he do that in the movie?
Yeah, at the end of
Advent
Advent Children. But it was believable there because it was like he had already gained all his abilities at that point. He was basically on par with Sephiroth.
He was in his prime, basically.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
Because that was after you'd already defeated Sephiroth once. So, of course, Cloud's going to be able to go toe-to-toe with him.
Yeah. At that point, he was already a super badass, right?
Yeah. But now we're just like, oh, he just randomly taps into his Advent Children abilities during this segment. And maybe that's part of going into that alternate dimension where you suddenly just become an amalgam of all the different versions of yourself or some shit. I don't know.
This story / game seems like it's making its attempt at like some Marvel shit. Because while I was playing this, I kept getting the feeling I was like, you know what, man? It's taking a lot of cues from the payoffs in Marvel games, or not Marvel games, sorry, Marvel movies, right? But the difference is that you do understand in those movies that most people have seen the prior material, right? Mm-hmm. You do make that assumption because it is a direct sequel, right? So you kind of do take that into the movie. But this is kind of just hoping that the crowd or the people that are playing it have a thorough understanding of 7, and they're trying to capitalize off of something that they hope is there, but they don't know for sure is there. You know, like the whole Crisis Core stuff and the changing of the timelines or whatever. It just seems like they're trying to do, or eventually going to do, a basically greatest hits, take advantage of the most shit that they possibly can that the fans of Final Fantasy VII thinks cool or expand upon. And I think that's what the goal seems like it's going to be, and why they did that. Because put it this way, man. You guys would agree that usually when a company puts this much effort into a game, especially nowadays in modern times, it definitely doesn't mean that, oh, that's it, we're pretty much good. They usually think way broader in a business sense, right? Like, they probably think they want to expand this as much as fucking possible. Don't you think?
They do milk this as much as possible.
It seems like that's what they're trying to do, for sure.
Yeah, which, I mean, I get it. I'm not against it. I was hoping it would be 3 episodes long total, but with how short this was, how they took a 3 to 4 hour segment from the original game and expanded it to a 25 to 40 hour segment is not giving me hope that it's going to be 3 episodes long.
And for me, I was totally prepared for them to do another compilation of Final Fantasy VII, because I mean, like, they already did one back when the game was only kind of popular, and then it got even more popular. So why wouldn't they just do it all over again? So they did try to create some kind of media monster by ending the first episode this way, splitting the timelines, and leaving everyone to just make podcasts like this about what the hell they're going to do next. And I think that's genius in a way, like marketing wise. That's freaking amazing. I applaud them for having the balls to do that, because it could have easily just blown up in their face.
They tried to do this already with Final Fantasy Versus, and
yes,
fucking blew up.
And they couldn't even do that. They were just like, they did it with 13, 1-3, 10, 1 and 2.
But if you recall the way that they talked about Versus, they specifically said that this is going to have ramifications across the board with every Final Fantasy game moving forward. Something to that effect, right? Where they were going to build a universe.
Yeah, the Chris Ellis universe or something like that.
Yes. And I feel like it's something they've constantly been like, they haven't been able to really pull it off for whatever fucking reason. You know, there's a lot of things that fell through over at Square Enix. And I think with this, you definitely get the feeling of like, okay, if it wasn't going to work with something new, this shit has too much weight in pop culture. This shit has got to fucking work. And if we put all our investments into this, or at least we feel that investors are down for us to push this, then everything should be able to work the way that we try to make it work with other games. And it's all in the history of all the games they've been making prior to this, you know? I remember Final Fantasy 15 had anime before this came out, right?
Yeah.
Something of the sort. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a movie that's attached to this, bro. Like, who knows how big they're thinking about
They could
Final
easily
Fantasy
do a
7.
movie off of this. That's the thing. They've already been here before with 7 too, so they really could just do it to a massive level in comparison to that.
Yeah.
And for them, I think that's great. I think I'm happy for Square Enix, and I'm excited to see what comes next after this. But I'm not gonna lie, everything that they built before this is now on a chopping block.
Well, isn't that how most remakes work? When they generally retcon established story.
No, they do, but Square Enix is trying to play this like they're going to do both. Where they're like, we're not retconning everything, but things are going to play out a little bit differently. Ha ha ha! A little bit. Are you kidding me?
Oh, is that what they officially said? A little bit differently.
That's something that they said, like in an interview where they said like it will play out the same way the original chain of events occur, but it'll occur a little bit differently than you remember. And I'm like, it's already differently than I remember, because Final Fantasy VII originally was about protecting the planet, and now it's about potentially protecting your timeline from another timeline that could be threatening it just by existing.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's this is a very old trope in RPGs that deal with alternate dimensions, but eventually existence can't support both of them. They start clashing on certain things, and things start merging together, and one dimension got to go. And so I would say that they could milk this to the point where you could have the two timelines interacting with each other for a number of games, not just Final Fantasy VII remake episodes. And at a certain point, you got to make a decision that it's gonna be your dimension or the next one. Well, they can literally run that kind of piece of that shit kind of game. It's almost like how they make mobile games, where you can just grab any character from any universe and put them on the squad. I feel like they would do something like that.
Well, just think about it this way, right? All these things that they're making are assets that they obviously want to use later, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're getting at a certain point in video game making where it just takes such a tremendous effort to make all these assets that they want to be able to repurpose them in a way that's not going to make them look like they're putting some shit in a different game that shouldn't fucking be there, right? Because now everything is fair game. So if I created a super detailed Midgar, then I could continue to keep reusing all that work that we put in a few years ago into all the sequels that come after Final Fantasy VII. As opposed to now we're making a completely new Final Fantasy game, all new fucking assets, and holy shit, it's gonna cost us a lot of fucking money, and if it fails, we are so fucked.
But it killed it.
Well, there's no way this would have failed. No matter what they did, I think there's no way this would have failed. So sorry, rephrase. If they didn't put Sephiroth in, would have failed. It would have gotten bombed. It could be the same game with no Sephiroth, and it would have gotten worse reviews from people, because the majority of people who like Final Fantasy VII like Sephiroth.
Yeah. And
I forgot all about this. I was looking at old articles, and I forgot that fucking Zack at one point was the most popular Final Fantasy character. Not Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy character. He was the most fucking popular character. And this was This was just based on the game. This had nothing to do with the expanded universe. It was all about the game. And how the fuck is some character who's just like, oh well, some guy stole my identity, and I died, and he took my sword. How is that the most popular fucking character? This is...
You barely learn anything about him before he dies. But I gotta say, there's potential in him being alive right now. It's kind of hokey, but one of the things he says to Cloud before all that goes down is that they're heading back to Midgard and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives because they just got free and nobody supposedly knows where they're at. And he's like, you know what? We should start a mercenary group. And so potentially we now have a game where Cloud and Zack are tag teaming everybody in Midgard.
Oh, nice. I want to watch that.
Well, the other thing is, hold on one second. Okay, the other thing is that I welcome this personality of who Zack is because he already seems way more tolerable than Cloud.
You're gonna love him.
He seems like he has an actual personality.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, and so when they introduced him, I was like, I already like this character more than I like Cloud because Cloud is just so angsty and then doesn't talk. But then this dude, you could feel like, oh, if he were to die, which obviously they allude to that, if he were to die, you would feel a way. But I don't know if Cloud were to die in this game. Let's just say in Final Fantasy Remake, something happened to Cloud and he fucking died. I don't know how I would feel about it. I don't think
you would probably not feel that much. I would feel it obviously as a fan of the game and having someone that has studied the character for a long time.
Yeah.
But I agree, and here's why. I think that the whole point of Zack was to be Cloud's, like if they're a two-man duo, and Cloud is the straight man, and Zack is the funny man, the face, the guy that everybody wants to be with. And I feel like when he died, Cloud, but without even really knowing this guy, still felt like he lost a part of himself. And we get the leftovers as the players. Now, putting them back together, maybe some of Cloud's shortcomings as a moody, angsty little guy, like little boy, are a little more forgivable because he'll have Zack with him at all times to kind of egg him on into becoming a real boy, basically.
Well, maybe you'll see his actual personality. Maybe the only real personality that Cloud would display would be with Zack because they're actual friends and actual comrades.
Right.
You know, where like this in Final Fantasy VII Remake, you always feel like Cloud doesn't want to let on a lot about himself. He just wants to get the job done, do his fucking job, and then move on, whatever. Until
he's just uncomfortable all the time.
Yeah, until way later. He's like, he gets a little more comfortable. He loosens up a little bit, but goddamn, it takes the entirety of the game, and what you get is like minuscule.
And even that shit's technically non-canon.
See, that's what I'm saying, the strength, story and character-wise of Final Fantasy VII Remake is more of a collective effort. You know, if Final Fantasy VII were never to exist, and this remake is the only Final Fantasy VII, I don't think I would be really tied to any character per se. Like maybe Barrett, because he has the only like real moments in the story, where you see a side of him. See, he breaks down and he elevates the way Cloud never does. And a lot of other characters don't. You know, he's a big fucking asshole to fucking Cloud. He's a tough guy, fucking big machine gun dude. He's really focused on terrorizing or being a terrorist or whatever the fuck. Carrying out this eco-terrorist shit for Avalanche and all that stuff, right? Like, that's all you get. They give it to you straight. They introduce you to him. He's very much that way. But he breaks down over time his relationship with Cloud and shows a lot of sides of how caring he can be and how loving he is by like how he reacts to the potential deaths of certain characters and like what's happened with his daughter. Like, he goes through the most character development probably in comparison to everybody else that's a main character.
100%.
And that would be the only character I think I would be attached to in any type of way, because Cloud he reacts, but it's this like, I'm having a fucking migraine about this situation. That's him showing emotion. Like, this is making I don't know. Like, they would definitely have to expand on the whole Zack thing. And obviously that doesn't happen at all in this game. But they also don't really expand on the whole Sephiroth thing either. So you don't know where he's coming from. You don't know why you're getting this version of Cloud. In all of Final Fantasy VII Remake, there's nothing that you're like, that makes sense. I could see why Cloud is like that. He got really fucked with. I could see why he doesn't like speaking his mind about stuff or showing emotion or getting too attached to anybody, you know, or he's really standoffish. I was like, now you understand where Cloud was coming from. That never happens. You never feel like you understand where Cloud is coming from. You just feel like, well, I guess that's the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't, like, I don't know, and that's my issue with the story in the game, and why when they introduce a few characters that are barely in the game, you become more interested in them than you may be with the main protagonist. Mm-hmm. Like when they show Zack, you're like, whoa, that's fucking cool. Like, who the fuck is that? Like, blah blah blah, right? I'll tell you who else I thought was interesting. The Leslie character.
Okay, I was gonna bring that character up. That character. So out of all the new, so that character wasn't in the original. Out of all the new characters they brought in, that was probably my favorite. Or Roche. Yeah, Roche was my favorite. Leslie was my favorite out of the ones that actually had some involvement in things. I liked the story, but I hated the story. It just, that whole section just felt shoehorned in, which kind of hurt how I felt about the character overall. But that character has more depth than Cloud. That character has so much. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they did Leslie dirty with that segment, dude.
Mm-hmm. Also, Leslie's supposed to be some badass bodyguard or some shit, right? And it's like, well, I'm just gonna point this gun at this fat fuck here, and oh no, he hit me and took my gun.
So Leslie is actually from one of the novels that they wrote, but it's super inconsequential to the story. So he's technically a new character, but also not, because he doesn't exist until after the meteor hits, supposedly.
So it's kind of like Johnny, where Johnny was technically in the original, but not. Yeah. It was just some random NPC that you see.
Johnny, dude.
Yeah, fuck everything about Johnny. Okay, that kid, Cloud should have killed. Tifa should have let him. Like, Cloud killed him.
That made no sense. Like, she literally said, "We gotta shut him up," and then like a second later, she's like, "Wait a minute, they're gonna kill him." I don't mean like that. Like, what the hell did you think? Shut him up meant?
Another thing about that scene that annoyed me is like, she's like, "Oh, you've changed. You're different." I'm like, what?
I'm a freaking mercenary, lady.
So to go into a little backstory on those two, since you said we could spoil shit.
Yeah.
Tifa, Cloud grew up in the same village. Everyone says they're childhood friends, but they're not childhood friends.
Hated that bitch.
She did not like kick it with Cloud. She kicked it with everyone else. Cloud was the outcast. Cloud tells her like, "Yo, girl, I'm going to become a fucking soldier," all this kind of shit. And he's like, "I didn't even think you would show up," because she ain't his friend. That's why. But everyone puts this whole childhood friendship on them, and
bro, if you played only Final Fantasy VII Remake, you would think that, wow, they've been friends forever.
No, not just that. People who played the original say the same shit, because that's what they think. They don't get that from the story, where it shows that he's an outcast from the entire group. He's not friends with anybody. He was a loner. He was the kid that just sits in his house all day just reading Bleach.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying from my perspective, how am I supposed to know that?
Yeah, I know. Oh.
As far as what they explained, it was like, oh, this is an old friend and blah blah blah. He said he would come back and da da da. She's so excited to see him, and then she's talking him up to Avalanche, like, oh, dude, Tifa said you're legit and blah blah blah. Like, it seemed really close throughout the entirety of Remake, and then you're telling me that it explains it in 7 that they weren't really that cool.
So it does and it doesn't. It doesn't directly state it. It shows it. It shows it shows all the flashback scenes, and they were never close in the flashback scenes. He never hung out with them. She never hung out with him. Chris might know more. Chris, you know.
At this point it gets kind of weird, because throughout the most of the game, of the original game, you do believe that they are childhood friends, but like Gibby's saying, it's kind of revealed later on that they weren't that close, and that Tifa's kind of manipulating him because he seems to be willing to be, to believe this shit. And that goes in line with several of the other characters just kind of fucking with Cloud, knowing that these things aren't true, but just kind of going along with it. Like Tifa knows that Cloud ain't no soldier.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she knows he's not soldier.
So then why did she get him hired then?
Because she's fucking with him. Like if you watch my stream, I say it a lot that she's lying to you, bro. But it's because he doesn't really know a world where he's not a soldier, because he did get experimented on as part of Project S, which was injecting people with Sephiroth cells, basically cloning people into Sephiroth. So Zack and Cloud become Sephiroth clones because of the Project S, and that's how he gets those crazy ass abilities and whatnot, and is now connected with Sephiroth and all that shit. Yeah. By the way, you wouldn't get any of that from Final Fantasy VII Remake, and you probably won't until much later anyway.
You get hints from Hojo about like, oh, it's you.
Kinda.
Oh, you're a failed experiment. Like he said, I forget the wording, but he explains that you're an experiment. And then the problem with the original 7, I can't remember if it's the way it was worded or just the fans being I'm about to say being dumb. It's not that they're being dumb, it's just misinterpreting things. A lot of people thought and still think Cloud is just an actual clone when he's not.
No, he was injected with Sephiroth.
Zack and Cloud were injected, and that's kind of what helped kill Zack. Like his body deteriorated because of the excess shit in his body. And like from what I remember, in the original, it came off. Tifa was definitely she knows the truth, but she didn't say shit, and it comes off more like, I don't know what's gonna happen if I tell him the truth, because I don't know if she knew he lost his memory or she thought he was lying, but she didn't say shit because it felt like she didn't want to hurt the guy or make him lose his mind. Which, spoilers, fucking happens.
Okay, I got a question. I got a question. Okay, so how and why did they hire Cloud to do that job if she knew that he wasn't an actual soldier?
That's a Chris question. I have no idea. So I personally don't know from the end of Crisis Core, where Cloud is in front of Midgar going into Midgar, till the start of Final Fantasy VII. I have no idea what happens there.
Because it seems like a pretty serious mission, and you're gonna hire somebody that's playing toy cop or whatever the fuck. He's imaginary.
So Cloud was a Shinra guard. He definitely was a guy who knew how to use weapons, at least guns and whatnot. Because remember, he tells her, "I'm gonna go to Midgard and I'm gonna become a soldier." He didn't make it. Right, he basically just became a grunt.
Yeah. He was too embarrassed to tell people.
When Cloud and Tifa see each other again, it's back in their hometown Nibelheim, and he's not a soldier. He's just a Shinra grunt, and all that shit goes down between.
She didn't know that was him.
She also didn't know that was him, but she knows that he had went to soldier. He went to Midgard to become a soldier. I don't think she ever saw him without it, because they were in the same Mako refinery, but I don't think she actually saw him kill Sephiroth.
No, she doesn't.
All right, so as far as I know, why she hired him is just based on the belief that he made it. As far as I know, they never really do like a pre-7 how did these two end up reuniting thing. And if they have, I haven't seen it. I'll definitely look that up, but it's not really considered a huge sticking point to the story, even though it probably should be.
So Cloud killed Sephiroth?
Yeah, in Nibelheim.
Prior to 7.
Prior to 7, Sephiroth, Cloud, and Zack go to Nibelheim to investigate some shit. They, I think it was the Mako reactor there. And it also happened to be a place that Shinra had a mansion in, where they were like storing experiments and whatnot. And it was Hojo's lab. One of Hojo's labs is underground underneath it.
Yeah.
And in Mako, and I think it was in in that town that they also were storing one of the Genova samples, or if the Genova sample rather. And Genova's sample starts talking to Sephiroth, saying, "Hey, kill all the humans.
Mhm.
And he does. He goes nuts. And when there's a point where Sephiroth goes to remove the Genova carcass from its harness, and Cloud comes up behind him and runs him through with the Buster Sword.
Mhm.
And that's how. And so supposedly from that point on, Cloud believes he's killed Sephiroth.
Right.
But it's been retold several times in Crisis Core. It's Zack and Cloud versus Sephiroth, and they managed to beat him.
Mhm.
But he doesn't die in a very like, oh god, I'm fucking dead kind of way. You know, it's more like a I think he's dead kind of way.
Mm.
And then Zack dies
Interesting.
in various ways, and depending on the story you're reading, he dies like 3 different ways: cell deterioration, shot by people on a cliff of Midgar, or shot by hella people on a cliff before Midgar.
Well, I can see how knowing all this shit would make the ending very interesting, or like the whole entirety of Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of really cool backstories and stuff like that. I don't know. I guess at this point we're talking about the future of Final Fantasy VII Remake and what's going to come after it. I mean, we've pretty much said our piece as to how we feel about the game. We gave our overall feeling on Final Fantasy VII Remake. I don't know, man. I think Final Fantasy VII Remake's subsequent sequels could go one or two ways. It could be something that really is the universe that maybe we didn't know we always wanted or we did always want, or it could be really bad.
I mean,
I don't know.
I'm kind of worried. Like, I'm excited to see where they go with it, but I'm also worried because, like I said, at the end of Dirge of Cerberus, one of the main villains of the series, Genesis, is shown to still be alive.
Mhm.
And like I said, he still has intentions to fuck with the planet, and that never got resolved. And now with the way Seven Remake's first episode ended, I kind of feel like that won't even matter anymore, because like if they try to make this about Sephiroth basically cleansing the world of humans, even despite the fact that he has the ability to fucking alter time, like, I'm not gonna believe it. I'm not gonna buy into that. I'm like, dude, you've already shown me like the fucking birthday cake here, man. I don't want the pizza.
Well, what's also frustrating about the time altering thing, he can do it, and so can Ares.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. She's part of the whole the ancient, etc., whatever the shit. But like, what the fuck she get these powers?
So that's something that. So she's a Cetra, but Sephiroth thinks he's a Cetra. He's not. He's
I know.
He's a piece of the. But they have the same abilities for some reason.
Well, he's infused with all the goddamn what is it? The live stream power.
Live stream shit. The fuck. Like so he's infused with it while she can commune with it.
Yeah.
And
no, it's all stupid.
It is all stupid. And I'm like, they had the easiest job, Abe. They had already laid out all this work over a decade, and all they had to do was give it a facelift, punch in some like fix some holes, fix some plot holes here and there. Because I guarantee you, not everybody has played all those Final Fantasy VII games.
Mm-mm.
They probably played the classic game and maybe Crisis Core. That's it. They definitely haven't played before Crisis.
Well, that's why I think it's
before
a really
Crisis. Oh, go on.
that's why I think it's a really interesting perspective too, is that from everybody that I've heard reviewed this game, they all know a lot of shit about Final Fantasy VII, right? And I'm always curious as to like how people are taking this game in if they don't know much about the series. Because at face value, it's a nice looking game. The story's okay, leaves a lot of shit out, and that's pretty frustrating. But I don't know, man. Like, I get why developers would do this, because if they were trying to recreate the same exact thing, then it kind of doesn't leave a lot of room for them to maybe fix the things that were shitty about the rest of the game. And I know that a lot of people who played the older game as well are probably like, well, why didn't you just make it Final Fantasy VII, but the best version of Final Fantasy VII, which is what I thought we were getting.
And all the other, like, they have a universe. They have a continuum.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they may utilize it, I mean, I like that, but again, like, they decided to basically make it impossible to care about it, you know? Because they could come with episode 2 and it does everything we wanted it to. You know, it fills all the plot holes that were left by the first game. It has flashbacks that explain all that shit. They even have playable segments, including characters that aren't playable in the present day, and include elements of Before Crisis, all those other games. Right? They could do all of that, but at the end of it, you know they're going to do the same shit again, where Sephiroth shows up and rewrites something. Because they can't leave that alone anymore. They can't just leave that lying and say, "Oh, sorry, that was just an episode 1 thing." They'd fucking get roasted.
Well, the other thing is especially if we're looking at the future in a positive way, is again about the whole assets thing. That it's kind of like when you make a new game like this, and you can continue using the assets, it makes it a lot easier to expand on those things that we're talking about story wise, right? Like, oh well, now since we have all these assets we could reuse. We don't have to spend all that time in development, you know, because now we could focus on story. And that's something that's really common with video games, you know, especially now that the gap between graphics isn't so enormous, you know, that it's like, okay, now we have to completely fucking redesign Midgar again and do all this other stuff. Now this is something that I think is going to be a good foundation to be able to move forward and expand on the story. So I am hopeful in the sequels that are coming forward for that, because now a lot of the weight can be put into those sections.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man. This is really where the stuff that you're talking about comes into play, whether guys like you or people like you are looking forward to the sequel, or worried about it, or, you know, you're really gonna have to reconcile the fact that this is not gonna be the game that you thought it was gonna be, and that's pretty much dead.
The characters don't even acknowledge it, man. Like, how they don't even say, like, dude, no one's gonna talk about how we just went through a freaking alternate dimension and fought like some fucking giant ghost, and then some dude that like nearly destroyed the world with the blink of an eye. No one's gonna talk about that, really.
Well, they mentioned Barrett's like, oh, you killed him, didn't you? He's like, I don't think I did. Like, oh, like the fuck?
You think about it though, right? Like, they introduce Sephiroth, and you're constantly wondering, why isn't everybody just fucking like, dude, who the fuck is this guy? And how the fuck did we kill him? What the fuck is going on with this Sephiroth dude? We're worried about this other shit, but this dude immediately seems like a fucking problem. You know?
Yeah. Like, oh, now we gotta go back to protecting the world's Mako in the live stream. I'm like, I don't think that's prudent anymore, man.
Yeah, the direction that it's heading to, it took a fucking hard turn into like, this is the only thing that matters, and you caring about other things, it's going to be hard to do that because this fucking godly presence exists that can change timelines and do all this crazy shit.
Right.
So
now this is assuming that's what he did.
So now
we're all assuming that's what he did.
Are they going to do shit like, well, if we could fuck with timelines, is there going to be a certain point in time where Aerith also fucks with the timelines? It's like, well, guys, why don't we just go back and fucking save Jesse?
I don't see why not.
Well, the thing about the ending as well. So Wedge is alive. Biggs is shown alive.
Wait, is Wedge alive? Because I don't remember seeing him.
Yeah.
Alive, yeah.
That guy has 2 buildings dropped on his ass.
Yeah,
he fell off one.
Yeah, he fell off. He fell off.
No, the fucking plate. The plate.
No, he survived that.
No, I know. Well, they dropped the plate on him, and didn't the building fall on him in the Shinra building?
Yeah, he survived that.
The Shinra one.
He was in the Shinra building. That fucking like he fell out that window.
Yeah, he fell out the window. It didn't fall on him.
Oh, okay.
Biggs somehow managed to survive the collapse of the plate, and it shows Jesse's headband in the ending too. I don't know if that's implying she's still alive or if it's just like, oh well, here in memoriam to a horny gal.
We have the bandana.
Yeah.
By the
I'm not
way,
sure.
your dead dad's dead, or your dead dad, your sick dad's dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your whole family's gone, bro.
I was hoping that the series. So not hoping. My thought about the series was that it was going to encompass, or the remake was that it was going to encompass everything in the series, right? It would explain bits and pieces from like the previous games because they have an entire universe to work with now to put into this game that can explain so much more. But I guess it didn't. It's not. They hint at, what was it? Hojo hinted at Genesis, like Project G or some shit like that.
Nods to him, yeah.
Yeah, he hints at that. There are some like hints here and there. I was told that the triplets from Advent Children or the Sephiroth clones from Advent Children are in this. I don't remember seeing them anywhere.
I don't know if that's even possible because like they're like manifestations of Sephiroth, like his will and his wrath, and like it's really weird shit.
Yeah, I don't. If they're in there, I don't remember seeing them. Sorry, I say I was told. I read some of the stuff and people said they're in this game. I heard it in two different things I was listening to. I'm like, really? Were they? Unless they all have different color hair and they're not like. Is that kid that gives you the materia? Is that one of them?
Might as well be shit.
Where'd you get that white hair
The
from?
data analyst?
Yeah, man. The kid with no personality.
I've discovered this new materia. Oh, also, how many summons are there in this game?
Including the DLC stuff.
There's DLC.
Yeah, if you pre-ordered it, you get like some special like cactar or some shit.
Oh, no DLC. No DLC.
I'll say 7.
7.
What?
You got 4 or 5.
I got 3.
Yeah, that's what I like for not.
There's Shiva, there's Fat Chocobo, there's the Bahamut.
You can get Bahamut?
Bahamut, yeah.
What?
That's weird. So in the final chapter where like the Bahamut dragon like shows up and is doing shit. I think it's Bahamut. It looks like him.
Yeah, it says that it is.
Oh, it said. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, sick. They got a model for this fucker, and he's not in the game.
Yeah.
Shitty game.
Yeah, you got to fight him in one of the optional. Like I think it's in the Shinra buildings. Training. It's one of the levels.
Oh, I didn't even fuck with that like at all.
I did 2 things and that was it. I'm like, eh.
Oh, also there's Baby Chocobo. I think that is that one of the DLC. I don't know.
I'm just gonna look it up.
Oh, man. Carbuncle, Cactar, Chocobo Chick. So it's 3 already. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 summons.
Jeez.
Not
Really?
6 if you don't include DLC.
Okay, so 6. So I'm missing 1 or 2.
Man, maybe that's why I had such a hard time, dude. What if I had the wrong summon?
There's fucking Leviathan. I didn't know that. What the hell?
Summons, okay, honestly, for me, summons felt worthless. They were just as worthless as the NPCs until you use summon ability or their meter ran out.
Well, they'd buy me some time so I could fucking heal.
Actually, that is pretty nice.
Okay, yeah, so it's Leviathan,
What?
Efreet, Shiva, Chocobo Mog, and then DLC summons Carbuncle, Cactar, and Chocobo Chick. Where is it? Oh, this list doesn't have Bahamut in here.
Despite all this shit, I actually still like the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually still like, I won't say it's fun for me to play, but when I played through it, I definitely felt like, yeah, this was an experience that I thought was worth the time. I don't want to go back and do it again, but I'm glad I did it.
I have to say, dude, like if one of my favorite games that I held so near and dear to my heart from the PlayStation era were to get remade and it'd be close to this level, I think I'd be like over the moon. You know, like one of my favorite RPGs is Legend of Dragoon, and if they even got anywhere close to this, I'd be fucking losing my shit.
Not gonna happen, man.
I know.
I know. I wish I dream for that, but
no, it's not because I don't want it to, because they're definitely gonna get some like outsourced party to make this fucking game, and I'm not gonna like it.
it's gonna be Squaresoft West branch, you know,
dude.
they grew up in Squaresoft Hawaii.
Well, one of my fears is that this is that's it. This is what Final Fantasy is now.
Like I said, they probably
moving forward.
Final Fantasy game.
Like
they don't need to. It's over.
Yeah, I get. So turn-based combat's not for everybody. I'm 100% for going away from it. I like it personally, but I get that the majority like action. Like this felt more like Devil May Cry to me than Final
They
Fantasy.
had, in my opinion, bro, they had to modernize it. There's
They
just
do. Yeah, you have
I
to.
don't think that you would have got sold this super theatrical game that it is now if it were not for the way that they built the battle system.
Mhm. But I like the battle system to 15, right? And this is a similar battle system, but
But shitty.
it's better in some aspects, worse in some aspects.
Yeah, you're right.
I would like it if the fights weren't like an hour. I mean, exaggerating, of course. They felt like they were an hour long, but they were like maybe 15 minutes or some shit for some of these fights. The Sephiroth fight, I get that being long. That makes sense.
Oh, yeah, I have a problem with that.
What was that fight? The fight with Genova. What was the Genova fight?
Genova fight in the Shinra building was
Yeah, I forget the name of that Genova.
Zero. Genova
We'll call it Afterbirth. Yeah. So Genova Afterbirth. That fight. That shit took a long ass time. And
Yeah.
you know what annoyed me about that fight? The good music didn't kick in until the final phase of the boss.
Oh yeah, that was fucking best.
The moment I got into that fight, I'm like, what the fuck is this music? Where's my Genova music? Like, cause that's one of my favorite tracks from the Final Fantasy VII. Like, it's so good.
Mhm.
And then it's not there. I'm like, ugh. And then it kicks in. And Abe, I think I was talking to you when I was doing it.
Mm.
I don't know if you remember. Like, oh, there's the music.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
yeah.
Like that's what that was. I was so happy. I'm like, fuck yeah. And then that got me more into the fight. It was still a long ass, drawn out fight, but I didn't hate it. I just hated that. Like, I hated that there was like 20 targets on the screen at once.
Again,
Or-
which is one of my biggest issues. The targeting system
Mhm.
is shitty.
And you had to run around and kill like her weird little ads before they spawned, like nullifying like magic or some shit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, you're just hoping that your ranged person is doing something.
And they're still not. But again, that speaks to how easy the game was going on you at the time. Because you're like, man, my range guy isn't doing shit, but I'm still alive and we're still beating this boss.
Mhm.
So I guess we're doing something right? And then you fight Sephiroth, like, nah, you was doing that shit wrong, bitch.
Yeah. There's a lot I like. There's a lot I hate. So the more I think about the game, like initially after finishing, I'm like, this game's fucking garbage. I hate this game. And then the more I sat on it and started thinking about it, I was like, okay, don't hate. I don't like it a lot. I don't hate it. It's a middle ground for me. I do like the original more, not because it's the original. It's just more my style. Turn-based, I like better.
I
like
keep
the
saying that
system.
I think I would enjoy OG7 more than I would enjoy this. Like if I played.
Yeah, you
I
probably
think you would.
you should give it a shot. I say play that shit now.
Hmm.
Not now, but like play it before the next chapter comes out, and then
Yeah,
you'll
get out of
You
Mhm.
get out of Midgard, yeah.
Just get out of Midgard, baby.
I love certain aspects of it. Some of the changes they made, like again the materia system, fucking great in this compared to the original. The original materia system was trash. It was legitimately bad.
And you know, it'd be kind of sick because they could just update the old one with this material system. I played the shit out of it.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be amazing. So at the time, yeah, the graphics, the visuals to the original, people loved. I always thought it looked like shit.
Same.
And it has nothing to do with hating the game. From when it launched, I'm like, why do they have boxes for hands?
Oh, dude, you know what was a sick throwback that I don't know if you guys noticed, but this is pretty cool. A visual thing is, you know how I was telling you guys about? Oh man, I love the nostalgia of the pre-rendered backgrounds. Did you
Yes.
notice them in 7 Remake? The pre-rendered
No.
backgrounds.
I did not.
You remember? Yeah, I did.
So when you're fuck, where are you trying to climb up really fucking high?
And you're looking down the Midgard, the underside, there's the slums.
It's way later, like in game.
Yeah.
But you're going up somewhere. You're trying to go. Oh, you're trying to go to the Shinra headquarters.
Yeah.
When you're headed that way, there's like in the background you see like all the destruction and shit of like all the shit blown up. That's
Mhm.
not like actually there. That's like a pre-rendered background.
Yeah.
And I was staring at it for the longest, and I was like, dude, there it is. I was like, right there, that's beautiful. The
You can
fact
see
that
my house from here.
the fact that they did that, because I hadn't seen pre-rendered backgrounds like that. I'm pretty sure there's been like a game or two that did that, but every other game nowadays is like if you see it, you can actually go there. It's an asset, you know.
Mhm.
You can actually go there. But this one's like that distance looks way too pretty to be all getting generated all at the same time in such a good-looking game.
Yeah.
And the combination of doing the pre-rendered backgrounds and then the backgrounds that you're actually interacting with, it was gorgeous. There's some parts of this game that are fucking jaw-dropping visually.
Oh yeah, visually, this is one of the best games I've seen. Like visually, like Chris said earlier, I would love to see this on PC. Like see what it could do without limits of whatever the console is. Like we don't know what the PS5 is gonna bring, but
Yeah.
I'd much rather they waited to put this on PS5 than on PS4.
100%.
Well, we're definitely gonna get that with the next version.
Oh yeah, it's not coming out on PS4.
ah.
I have a hard time believing. I mean, it would be both at the best.
The only way that I reconcile Final Fantasy VII Remake for me is the way that a lot of other people are looking at Final Fantasy VII Remake that really like the game, and is that you can be hopeful for some really cool shit to go down in the future for this game. They could capitalize off of literally anything that they want to. Like a conversation that I had with you guys a few times was, how many times did they capitalize off of shit that really was just pop culture shit and not shit that they intentionally designed for people to like? You know?
Oh, that's almost an entirety of like everything that's not the battle system or Sephiroth in this game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And if they're doing that for 7 Remake, then if the following sequels that are coming, then it's just gonna be even more fan service of a lot of shit like that.
So first, I'm gonna say right now, no one gave a shit about Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge in the first game.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did with them in this game was like, okay, they gave him some personality, and then they made Jesse also the third girl for Cloud, which was, can't believe they thought it was a good idea to include that much fan service in this game. That's
You're
part of
like,
what ruined this
finally, a
character.
game for me.
No, dude, like I was actually mad. 'Cause, like, dude, like he doesn't give a shit.
He really
He's not
doesn't,
supposed
though.
to. He's not supposed to get like that kind of attention. It's supposed to be about him being really afraid of his flashbacks and shit like that. You know, Cloud is not supposed to be into girls because he's too busy being freaked out about the things he did in Nibelheim.
You want to know where Cloud was most vulnerable and like actually accepting what's happening? The whole Andrea scene.
Oh yeah,
That's the most emotion you get from Cloud, and it's not a joke. That's legitimately the most emotion you get from Cloud. He's enjoying himself. He's shocked. He's looking into Andreas. I was like, oh Jesus.
that was like, whoa, they dug deep for that. But I'm like, dude, if they're willing to do that, they're willing to take that much liberty. Like, I can't wait to see what they do for Baird and Dine.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. That's good. I want to see what Dine looks like.
Yeah, because they didn't really have a really good model of him in the original 7, and the character design for him looked nothing like the model. Like, I didn't even know he had gray hair.
So Abe, there's when I first played, when a lot of us first played Final Fantasy VII, we're like, why is Barrett the only person with a gun for an arm? This makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's another person with a gun for an arm later in the game.
Oh, interesting.
And what a coincidence! He and Barrett are connected somehow.
They both have the same
The way
manufacturer.
they lose their arm, they actually stole that in Naruto.
What? The
Because
same,
you know,
they lost it the same way.
Yeah.
Oh shit. That's
that shit blown off.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like some. Okay.
It was a pat. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I am interested in seeing what they do with some of the later characters. Something none of us brought up was Red 13 because he's not playable.
That was weird.
I knew we were gonna interact with him because Shinra, it's gonna be all at Midgar. Red 13, I think that was one of my favorite characters overall.
He was a breath of fresh air in this one for me.
Yeah.
Because I was already annoyed with most of the cast, and then they introduced this character. I was like, oh, thank God, somebody to break up this weird monotony that I've been experiencing. It was pretty cool when they introduced him.
I like the voice actor they got for Red because he sounds like what I thought he would sound like.
Mhm.
Like the just the tone of his voice, not like the way his voice sounds, just like everything else about him. I'm like, oh yeah, this is exactly how I imagine he would speak.
Mhm.
I was actually worried though because a way that American voice acting direction has gone in video games recently, I was like, dude, they could totally Scooby Doo this guy.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
holy, he's just-
Right, Bert. It's like, oh no.
Or if it would have been.
I'm trying to think of some of the other characters, like some of the NPCs, like Sam, who did his voice? It sounded like someone trying to do a knockoff Sam Elliott.
Which one's
Shit, I don't
Sam?
Sam was the cowboy.
Oh,
Oh,
The
yeah.
one in Walmart that tells Cloud, "You've grown a lot since you showed up here." You know, because Walmart took like 10 hours to complete.
Oh my god, dude. So I was streaming that part. Like I was streaming everything up until that part, and it was like 1 a.m, and I'm getting ready to go to bed, and then the Walmart segment starts, and I'm like, fuck, I can't go to bed right now. Like I can't start a stream on the Walmart segment. And I went all the way through Walmart from like 1 to 4 in.
Oh no,
And I
dude.
was just like, this segment fucking sucks.
It's so I mentioned this earlier. I didn't really enjoy doing the side quest, and that was forced side quest on you.
Yeah.
That should suck, especially the whole Johnny stuff again.
Well, do you know the Chocobo side quest? Here's something
Yes.
that's gonna be interesting. Is when you take a Chocobo, it has to reload all the assets again to the direction that you're going to, right? Whenever you go there. Supposedly, with the PlayStation 5 and the new Xbox, that's not gonna be a fucking problem. So,
Yeah, no load time supposedly.
so it would make a lot of those things way more bearable, right? And maybe don't have to make up fucking side quests like that anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
Give it a fast travel instead.
Oh please, yes.
the whole thing
Just
with
fucking Chocobo.
like,
You ride a goddamn Chocobo. What the hell?
oh, that's the other thing that I was gonna ask you guys. Like, do you get a legit Chocobo in
No.
7?
You don't.
OG7,
Yeah.
OG7.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
So
a
in the
crux.
original 7, you get a Chocobo, and then you can breed Chocobos.
Oh, sick.
And then you can get what is it? Yellow, light blue, red, black, gold,
Red, black, gold, and green.
green. Okay.
Can
Blue,
you?
blue or green. And they all do different things. Some of them can run on mountains. Some can run on water. Some can run on terrain that like just normally you can't travel. And they're absolutely required to reach certain items you normally can't get.
Okay, that's
And,
pretty
yeah.
usual.
Like back then, it was like the first time anybody ever tried it. And you also get a fucking airship.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. So it has all the trimmings of Final Fantasy that you think it would have. At least
World
modern
map,
Final
yes.
Fantasy.
That's part of the things that was. I mean, I get that, like, it's just Midgar. You don't need a world map. But I'm like, dude, like, if I would have one wish for the further episodes is that we actually get some kind of world map.
I would like that. This game felt too linear. Way too linear.
It is very constrained though. Like the
Yeah.
paths that you're walking through are such small corridors. Like
Another thing that bugs me about that, the pacing of movement, especially in crowds.
Mhm.
When you bump into someone, oh whoops, oops, like you just get flown like to the side, like oh no, and then even when you bump into your own teammates.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was weird. I was like, why am I interacting with my own teammates like that?
One of the gripes I had, I think you mentioned it earlier, Abe, is when you're just walking.
Yeah.
There are scenes where the game forces you to walk, and it
Yeah,
gives you
that
a
was
forced camera perspective. It does that in situations where your teammates are running. Come on,
Yeah.
Cloud, you gotta hurry up. And Cloud's like, okay, I'm
It was
just
like a glitch.
No, it was not. It was that was functioning as intended. Okay.
yeah, it is.
You're supposed to enjoy because like the first time that happens is after you blow up the Mako reactor and you're in the like little underground tunnel area, and they really want you to look at that underground tunnel area, so they have you walking at the slowest pace possible. Meanwhile, Barrett is just striking fucking Usain Bolt style through the sewers.
Damn. I do have to say though, the part of the ending sequence when the bridges are falling apart and shit and Cloud's jumping over it, that shit looks so fucking cool when you're controlling the character.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's a lot of cool shit in this game, man.
there's a lot of cool shit in this game. I think that they did a good job with it. It's just I think as a fan, it's my job to remind them like, hey, this can't all just be cool moments. You still got to have a game here. I paid $60 for this son bitch.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay $60 for something that had some cool moments strung over some really long sequences of unbearable gameplay.
All right. Well, I don't know, man. I mean, we've been on this conversation surprisingly. I think we're close to 3 hours.
Yeah, I was just saying that to myself.
Talking about this stuff, and I'll be honest with you, it feels like an hour 40, but being pretty damn close to 3 hours, that's pretty incredible. I don't think we've done a podcast this fucking long ever in a long time.
It's a pretty loaded topic.
Yeah. So even then, I still think there's a lot of things we could touch on, but for the most part, I think we really were able to dig into how we felt about the game, the gameplay system, the story, and I guess like to kind of tie a bow to this thing, kind of to summarize already what we've talked about towards the end is like, I want to know like how you guys feel about leading into the future, and if this is something you're positive about, your fears. Like I'll start off. I'm really hopeful for what can potentially happen for Final Fantasy VII subsequent sequels. Like I said, I'm not tied to anything. So after this, if what we're getting is something that seems to be completely new, fuck it, man. Like I'm all for it, especially if it turns out to be done really well and there's some quality of life changes that I think they should definitely address. It could be a fucking phenomenal. It could be the best game. The next Final Fantasy VII game could legitimately be the best game. But my fears are, it doesn't even necessarily have to do with Final Fantasy VII. My fears are with Square Enix in general, is that are we not going to see any more innovation coming from them? And is this it? And if it is, I think it's likely that it is, just because I think history really tells a story, especially the fact of how much Nomura has been involved with everything Final Fantasy for the past like 15 to 20 years, or even maybe possibly, I think around there. And what it means for any type of different Final Fantasy, because it's like, I don't think we had a really different Final Fantasy since fucking 12. Something that feels really different. Yeah. And 12 was done from somebody else, right? The direction and everything was done from a different perspective or person. Mm-hmm. So this makes me worried that this is all we're going to get is Nomura shit, which is, I mean, that's fine. That's cool that Nomura is involved in a lot of stuff, but I want something different, man. This is why I'd be super excited if they did like a Final Fantasy IX remake or something like that. Something just fucking different. I'm really, really burnt out on a lot of these designs that are like, seem like they all exist in the same fucking universe. I just want something different, And that's my fear that we're not going to get it. Go ahead, Chris.
I think you are correct in your fear, or rather, it's a fear of yours, but it's basically an assumption that this is all we're going to get as far as Final Fantasy goes, the mainline console releases.
Yeah.
Mainly because they don't have to release anything else. They don't have to do anything. I almost would say if they drop 16 for PS5, but at the same time they were also talking about doing episode 2 either before or nearby that, it's already dead. Yeah. Like you can only really hype one of these. And I don't see why they would waste money and time before at least episode 2. Maybe after episode 2, they can think about a new game. But
I think they're thinking about episode 2 as the new game. That's why they took it. They're taking it in that direction.
Yeah, like episode 2, episode 3, like they don't have to do any more numbered Final Fantasy games as a mainline release for a long time. They can do like, side games on handhelds and on mobile, maybe even make movies or whatever, right? But they're probably going to reallocate those resources to remaking Final Fantasy VII, because that's what's going to make the most money. Why waste? Why risk it on an IP that people may not dig when you just got the golden goose?
Especially since the last 8 years, they've been a lot of the games have been panned, not too well.
I mean, 15 was what it was, but let's face it, it ain't 7.
No, it's not a lot of good Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right?
All of 13.
13,
Yeah.
12. I mean, as much as people liked it, it ain't 12 ain't 7.
Well, you start falling into the thing of like design wise, story wise, a lot of these games in the past fucking 8-9 years have not connected with people. So they're giving the fans what they want with 7, and that's pretty much where their commitment's gonna go. Because this honestly feels like it took a massive effort to make.
Yeah,
You just look at it. And
I'm sure it did. And I'm sure that even though they got the assets already played out, I'm sure that episode 2 will be a massive undertaking. Because because they're not going to go back to Midgard. They're going to have to build a lot of stuff from scratch for episode 2. Which is why I want them to do a world map. Because I'm like, dude, do yourselves a favor.
You could repurpose shit though. That
You can.
Most game devs do shit like that, where it's like, well, this piece you could technically use this as this other piece in a completely different location.
Yeah, it's mostly about arrangement in that sense.
Go ahead.
But at the same time, I'm also like, I expected this for a long time to happen from Square Enix, where there would finally come a day where they were just like, you know what, we're just going to do one game series. You know, the old joke has always been, if it's Final Fantasy, how can there be a sequel? You know, well, now there's not.
And they've been trying it. I mean, it just has not had that impact that they were hoping for. And they tried it with 13, and then they were gonna try it with the whole Crystallis thing, and it didn't happen. And now they're getting something. They're gonna get their biggest bang for their buck. And it makes me a little sad that we might have to sacrifice any other innovation or new story for this, but ultimately, I do want the company to exist, and games are getting really fucking expensive to make, so I understand.
Yeah, man. Like, run that until it just doesn't anymore.
How do you feel, Gibby, about the future, and is there anything you're worried about?
I said earlier that I don't care which direction they go in with this. Like, I'm gonna play or watch regardless.
Yeah.
There's really nothing they can do going forward that'll be like, what the fuck? Like, I can't believe they I'll have opinions, but storyline wise, they can do whatever they want. I don't care if it's faithful to the original.
Mhm.
I would like a better gameplay experience personally, but I don't see them change. Like you said also earlier, they have the core game ready. They have all the assets. Everything's there.
Mhm.
Now all they got to do is just work on story.
Mhm.
I would like to see a more complete game from the next one. Like, the first game was broken down into 3 discs. At least have this game go up to the end of the first disc or the end of the second disc. Don't end it in like a certain spot. World map would be nice, like Pockets mentioned. I don't see that happening.
Probably not.
It would take too much.
Well, they wouldn't have to do it we can talk about that later. I was just gonna say, like, they could just do like a little representation mini world map. They don't have to do like the actual UI experience of you walking through the entire world in Final Fantasy VII. Yeah.
I think the thing I would like to see the most is like a lot of the iconic scenes. I would like to see how they look now, because that was the main thing I was looking forward to. Just everything. Again, not being a big fan of 7, I just wanted to see what they would do with the new visuals, and I gotta admit, everything about the visuals I love. Even if it like the end sequence where Cloud is bouncing off of shit and stuff around this throwing a fucking building at us, and we're cutting it in half. I thought it was stupid, but it looked amazing.
Yeah.
You're waking them Genova cells, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, they took it to the next level at the end, man. I mean, this has been a game that has really affected our circle of people that we interact with the FGC and stuff like that, and obviously amongst the greater video game community. It's It's already being considered as a potential game of the year. And yeah, this is one of those things that it's a shared experience that a lot of people are going to experience, and I'm interested in where it goes in the future. And obviously, from how long this podcast has gone, this is a pretty interesting and important topic. And I'm just generally really glad that we had such a different perspective on this game. Like Gibby coming from somebody that's played it before and definitely has experience in the other mediums or other games in the universe, and Chris being a big fan, and you know how that can translate into what he's explaining, and me not knowing really much other than the designs. I think we can all agree on a lot of the things that Final Fantasy VII is a special game. The designs, the story has stood the test of time, regardless if they haven't aged well. As far as for us, it still means something to a lot of people. And I'm sure we're gonna continue to see a lot more stuff, and regardless, it's gonna be exciting, right? You guys could agree. Whatever's gonna happen is gonna be something pretty exciting.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Yeah. So, all right, man. I think this is time for us to close it out. We're pretty damn near 3 hours or right there, and I really appreciate you guys for putting away the time to join me on this podcast and review this hefty topic. And I hope all you guys out there enjoy it. And yeah, man, follow at Manchest and follow at Hell Pockets. They have a lot of great opinions. We talk a lot of shit to each other on there. And I'm going to continue to have you guys back on. And Chris, I promise I'm going to release the part 2, because I actually think it's very meaningful, in my opinion. There's a lot of things that you talk about on there that about how you're coming up and your whole the whole nerd culture thing and what it's like to go through that stuff. And you know, I'm there too. Gibby, I'm gonna have you on again at some point as well. So
yeah,
y'all my boys. Thank you.
Make sure you watch Fatal Showdown every Tuesday.
Wait, what? What were you gonna say, Chris?
I'm just kidding.
What happens every Tuesday?
I was like, make sure you watch Fatal Showdown every Tuesday.
Oh yeah, Fatal Showdown dropping very soon. You know, whenever Gibby decides to make that happen, he'll put that on out there.
Stream in a month.
Exactly. But this will be on Spotify and YouTube for you to consume, and for you guys listening on the eventual Twitch stream that I'm gonna do for this. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys had fun in the chat talking shit about all our horrible opinions. But yeah, man, this has been great. Thank you guys for watching, and we will be back with another episode at some point in time. Catch you guys later, and have a good evening, day, whatever. Peace.